Dude, listen, man. My original intention was to come on here and apologize for the lack of content on this channel for the past, 2 months. That was my original intent. I was like, man, I'm gonna come on here, I'm gonna apologize, especially since I'm apologizing for the lack of content before this video, and the lack of content is gonna happen after next week, you feel me? But I was like, you know what, man? Instead of putting out a video apologizing for it, why don't I instead talk about where I've been? Why don't I instead talk about the shadow realm that has absorbed me and hasn't let me go since July? Alright? I was like, dude, you know what, man? I am taking off the weights. Because usually, probably due to contrary to popular belief, I actually try to hold myself back in these types of recommendation videos, right? And this is half recommendation, half spoilers. And trust me, whenever we get to the spoilers, I'm gonna hit y'all with the cut. I'm gonna be like, yo, if you do not want to get spoiled, you better exit the video immediately. Because there's no restraints around here, son. Not for this series. So, but yeah, man. I'm going to assume it's contrary to popular belief. I actually try to hold myself back in these types of things. Because I don't want to overhype things for certain people. You feel me? But there are certain cases where I just can't help it. Alright? So if you're not a fan of the words, peak fiction, goat, raw, fire, click off of the video. Because those are going to come up like 50 times in here, man. I can't help it. The weights are off. On some Rock Lee stuff, the weights are off. I took them all, I threw them into that flagnards. I'm talking about this greatness with no restraint. First with no spoilers. And then we're going to head into spoiler territory. Game by game. Alright? Because this, without question, has been the greatest catch-up experience to anything that I've ever had, son. Ever had, dude. I threw this thing around like 70 times. Playing this greatness. I put it on, I threw it. I mean, this thing was like locked in midair for some games. It was just... Today we are here to talk about the Kiseki series. The Trails in of 2 series. The Legend of Heroes Trails of Awesome Sauce. That is what we are here to talk about today, bro. All the way from FC to SC to the 3rd to 0 to OW to Cold Steel 1, Cold Steel 2, and Cold Steel 3, because Cold Steel 4 is waiting for me in a dimensional time trap stuck in next Tuesday. And when I get my hands on that, bro, it is over for the planet. The planet might try to, destroy itself on that day, because that will be the day that I am stuck in this cave until work says otherwise. Because after the ending of CS3, even without that ending, do you know what that is? To be caught up to this legendary franchise? Alright, man, listen. For those of you who are thinking about getting into the series, but you see the length of each of the games can go on for easily 100 hours. Easily. Especially certain, the climax games, as I call them. The games that take a lot of what was built beforehand, and you see, it's the equivalent of, since my channel is mainly a One Piece channel, it'd be like your Arlong Parks, your Alabastas, your Enies Lobbies, stuff like that, Marineford. Those arcs that are the culmination of all these different stories taking place. Kiseki has a lot of these arcs in games, right? Those games can easily go up to 100, 120 hours. And what impresses me the most about that is that once you are in it, once you're invested, those 100 hours fly by. Those days fly by, man. I mean, they just... Every day you're like, yo, I'm going home, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Next day, all right, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, and this. But the story and the characters, bro, the music. Listen, man. Shout out to my boy Ragi, Araragi, man, Nasty Kaito, because he helped me purchase the very first game in the franchise. He was like, yo, I'm gonna pay this for you because I want you to experience this awesome sauce. And I was like, bet, bro. So around Christmas time last year, I got a Steam card, put it in, I was like, bro, I'm gonna purchase this game on Christmas Day because that's what I wanted for Christmas. I forgot who it was that I asked. I don't remember if I bought it or if I asked my brother or whatever. I was like, yo, give me a Steam card for Christmas. So I booted up the first Trails game on Christmas Day. And I'll just never forget hearing the main menu music, and I was like, man, this is about to be special. FC greatness. And I was just playing it. And it took me from Christmas Day until I think it's the week that Ghost of Tsushima came out, which is like July something. It took me all that time to beat the first game. And I absolutely adored the first game. I had so much fun with it. But there were so many other games that came out in between that I was like, yo, I'm gonna play this in like the off time from everything else, you know, from the YouTube channel, whatever. And it took me a long time to beat that game. But from the moment that I reached the final 30 minutes of FC until I caught up, it's been non-stop, dude. It legitimately has been non-stop. All right. I don't know what everybody's hook point is when it comes to stories, right? Especially for long-running ones. Everybody has a different one. You know, it's the same thing, of course, in the anime manga realm. You know, people that have certain hooking points in a lot of these long-running series, One Piece, JoJo, Conan, Ippo, Gintama, whatever, right? Like, there's that one point where you're invested, like you're in there, dude. You're in there like swimwear. All right. Let me just say this, bro. Then we're gonna hop into the spoilers because I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I think I'm gonna put timestamps for just in case you were like me and you were catching up to the series and you want somebody to listen to on like each individual game, whatever. I'll probably put timestamps like whenever I'm talking about each game. But before we get into the spoilers, I just want to say if you were thinking about getting into this franchise and you need any help whatsoever in buying games, especially with Zero and Owl, which haven't been localized yet. With the can't wait to talk about that. But with like those or where to start, if you've never played a JRPG before, yo, just hit me up, man. Just hit me up on Discord, on Twitter, in the YouTube comments. Yo, I'll help you as much as I can, man. Even though I'm fairly new to the franchise as well, I'll try to help you to get into the greatness, bro. Because I feel like this is a journey that if you enjoy this medium of video games, and it feels like for me that this franchise is like the payoff to all of these years of playing JRPGs and games, because they put so much effort into the small things, man. I mean, there is a new line of dialogue after you open treasure chests, people. For each individual chest, you can open a chest, get the stuff, and when you come back to that chest, there's either a joke, something is stated in that chest, and it's different for each chest. NPC dialogue refreshes after every single event. Do you know how much text is in here, bro? I mean, it is crazy. It's incredible. And the voice acting cast, they have an all-star team on all of these games. Like, if you've watched enough anime, you will recognize so many of these voices. So many of these voices. And in some of them, to me, it is their best roles. It is, bro. Like, you feel me? Like, oh, man, but yeah, just like the small stuff, the attention to detail on side quests, on character arcs, and how certain characters and what makes them tick, and their quirks, and how that leads into either hilarious or very emotional side stories, and then how that connects into the main plot. I mean, just the attention to detail to every single little thing in these games is so amazing. Even when it comes to connecting the music to what somebody's going through. Like whenever you enter the overworld and you hear a certain theme song that you just feel like absolutely connects to what is going on in the story. And you know, the different boss themes that, depending on the boss that you get, that you can have presented to you, like it's not always the same theme, and it's just, man, yeah, dude. All right, I gotta talk about it, bro. I highly recommend this franchise. All right, this is, like I said, without question, the greatest catch-up journey, bro. I have been playing non-stop since July throughout all of these games. They've been legendary. They have been absolutely goated. And like I said, bro, because video games are my favorite medium of storytelling. Honestly, like, so many of these experiences have forged who I am as a storyteller and who I am as an individual. So, like, I have a lot to give back to this medium someday. And now I have even more thanks to this franchise. But as someone who really believes in the potential of this medium as a medium of storytelling, the Trails series really solidified that fact that this is top one for me in the storytelling business. And the thing is it's one thing to be completely immersed in characters, it's one thing to be invested in characters, but when you're controlling them and you're able to control what it is that they can and can't do, of course not every single thing, but when you're controlling the journey, when you're able to decide whether you want to go and experience more of their stories through side quests, and you have to make decisions in game, especially in the later games, that can affect stuff that happens later on, and these characters then become kind of yours as well. And you're authoring their stories. Even though there's certain things that can't be changed no matter what, you're still in control of these characters. And you control their movements and their attacks and everything. And that's a different level of immersion and investment. And that's why I think there's so much potential in video game storytelling that has yet to be tapped, right? So, yeah, man. And Trails takes complete advantage of the fact that it is a video game. And it does some stuff that I wish so many other franchises could do. And it's not like, you know, it does a lot of the same stuff as other JRPGs, for sure. But the way that it executes upon those things that we've known for so many years as fans of this genre, is just, it's out of this world. It's out of this world, and to me, it's lonely at the top. It's lonely at the top, man. And I thought that it was recency bias, but it's just, when what is arguably my favorite game ever made in Final Fantasy VII gets a remake in this year, and that is not my favorite video game experience of the year, thanks to this franchise, to me, that's how I know it's special. You feel me? That's how I know it's really, really special, man, because this experience of catching up to this series has been, it's been unreal. But yo, let's get into it, bro. Let's get into it. We're gonna dive into some spoilers here, man. And we're gonna start off with FC, bro. Trails in the Sky FC. You know, there was a moment in this game that from then until the end, I was so hooked, bro. And it was from the moment that I entered Zeiss. Alright? When I entered that town and I heard the music, I was like, hold on, Chief. And I saw what it was building towards. I was like, Chief. And then the characters that you meet there, the way that things are starting to culminate. But once Grand Cell hit, man, I was like, Chief, I'm in. I'm in. I have so many pictures on my, I have mad amounts of I have like 2,500 photos of just screenshots and or pictures that I took on my computer and my phone while playing through this game, dude. And playing through this franchise, I should say. And it's like, Flagnards. Like, bro, from the Kapua storyline, and invading the home of the bandits and trying to figure out what's going on there, and really learning about the world in that first game and meeting everybody, man, like Chloe and Tita, Agate, and the way that it was done, and you're going from each place to each place to each place. And I remember just like being in awe in the way that everything was just coming together so well. But once you reach Grand Cell, man, it's like Flagnards. Like, now that you've met all these characters, now that you've gone on this journey with Estelle and Joshua, meeting everyone, and then once it starts popping off in Grand Cell, you're invested, you're in, like, you're like, whoa, like, hold on now, Chief. And so once that final dungeon starts hitting in that first game, and now you have everyone available to you, and it's like, all right, we're in. Dude, that entire last section, especially since you had spent the entire game looking for Cassius, you had spent the entire game attempting to find out what in the world is happening with him, and what is this black orbment that was left with you. That was one of the things that really had me like super hooked, where I was like, yo, what? Like, first of all, where's Cassius? That's what I thought the name Trails in the Sky meant, because I was like, yo, it's trails in the sky left behind by their pops. So I was like, yo, is this series going to be focused around them trying to find Cassius on some Hunter x Hunter stuff? So at first I was like, okay, interesting. So they're following the trails left behind by Cassius. And so, you're going around, you're doing all the things. I loved also that bandit infiltration part, whenever you're going and you're with Josette and Kyle and whatnot. That part was so awesome to me. I love infiltration missions, which is why there's some stuff in the later games that just, like, infiltration and escape missions are my jam. As an espionage tard, like Metal Gear Solid being what it is to me, infiltration and espionage is my jam. All right, so anything that has any of those two in like an awesome escape mission or an awesome infiltration mission, then you already know I'm gonna be hooked. But yeah, that bandit infiltration stuff and the play that took place with Chloe, with Joshua, and with Estelle, and their play, because plays in JRPGs are always special. I always think back to Final Fantasy IX. I thought about Final Fantasy IX quite a bit while playing through this franchise, but we'll get to that in some later games. But in FF7 as well, and in FF6, especially with like the opera scene and whatnot. So like, plays in other games that I really enjoy have always they've always been really special. And in that moment, I still remember it to this day after all the craziness that's gone down. So it's like, yo, that was special. But that final part, man, hold on, I gotta talk about Olivier, bro. Olivier was the first character. I was already really invested in Estelle and Joshua, and throughout the entirety of Sky, I can 100% say that those were the two characters and character arcs that I was most heavily invested in, which I guess makes sense because they were the two mains. But aside from them, when I met Olivier Lenheim, bro, and I heard Takatsugi Shinsuke's voice, I heard Koyasu, I heard Dio Brando, I was like, nah, this is my dude. Olivier has one of those personalities that in a story, he's one of those characters that whenever he's on screen, you're immediately like, your attention is on him. And it's intentional, but the way that it's done is so genius, right? Especially in FC, where you're like, who is this dude? He's raw. He's something more. But you're like, bruh, what is his story? Why is it that he's sneaking around? Why is it that he's, trolling as much as he is? There's got to be more to it. And so whenever you start that final saga, or the final chapter in FC, and you see him outside that window, and he's there with Mueller, and he's like, yo, it's about to pop off here. And I'm like, whoa, like, hold on. So then we get to the final chapter, and this is when stuff really started hitting the fan for me, man. Where I was like, yo, I'm invested now, bro. I was invested in all the characters, Shara, just everyone. And so whenever you hit that final portion, and you're going up against Alan, and it's like, yo, shout out to Alan Richard, man. Awesome character, really awesome character. And then some more. Known at the time as Lieutenant Lawrence, bro. That's all I'm gonna say, dog. Lieutenant Lawrence. And that legendary scene on top of the castle. Goated. Where he flies off and he tells the queen, Hamill. Believe it or not. But yo, then but you get into that last part, and I was so caught off guard by where the story was going. Because after you take out Alan, this massive Ion shows up, and I'm like, what in the Flagnars? We're heading to Gundam here? Like, yo, I thought Zeiss was gonna be the most that we're going to see from a technological advancement standpoint. I thought that what we already had known from the story, and I knew that we were going to start diving into some more like mysteries of the world, especially with the influence of like the church and ancient texts and the Orbman system. They always talked about certain things that happened in the past, so I knew that certain things that happened in ancient civilization in this world and or whatever in the past had a massive and major effect on what is currently taking place. Like whatever happened then was huge, and there was this one event that caused everything afterwards to be in the way that it is now. And so I always knew that technology was going to be a major part of the series from jump, right? Especially with the how everything is so built on these orbments and whatnot. So I already knew we were going to head down a path like that. But to see that Ion show up and the way that all that stuff went down at the end of FC, it just really caught me off guard. And so eventually, whenever stuff starts popping off down there, and then Cassius comes into the rescue, I was losing my mind, dude. I was like, Shanks is here, let's go. So Cassius shows up, things are going in, and then of course, you get that final portion, bro. Now listen, man, once again, if you are still listening to this, and you have not finished at the very least FC, please do not watch this part of the video, bro. Because this is what really hooked me into this franchise. From what I want to tell you, until I caught up, Journey of Legend, man. I would think I was in the middle of playing, or I was like right at the beginning of Ghost of Tsushima when I got to this part. And I think I played this part I'm about to tell you, and from then it was over. I didn't touch a single other game other than like my Call of Duty and stuff that I play regularly, other than Trails for a couple months. At the end of FC, bro. When this man, Wiseman, shows up, when George Wiseman shows up in front of Joshua when Estelle goes off to get the ice cream, and he snaps his fingers, my brain got crossed over so bad, because I had always known that something was building with Joshua. I just didn't expect it to happen in the first game. Like, when the game ended in the way that it did, I was mad shook. Especially because I felt like everything was over, so when you're in this after portion, it's like, yo, it's over. Like, the credits about to roll, we're about to be Gucci. But when Wiseman shows up, and he snaps Joshua out of it, and you get the revelation after revelation after revelation and more questions, and you find out who Joshua really is. You get the name drop of Ouroboros. And you're like, yo, what's going on? Like, bro, my eyes were so glued onto the screen. I was like, what in the flying platters is happening? And then Estelle comes back. Joshua's he's acting all like nothing's changed or anything. And the fact that you don't ever see Wiseman in front of Estelle, and you're like, yo, who's actually the professor that they ran into in so many of these parts earlier in the game? This dude was manipulating everything. It just reminded me so much of Bleach, bro. Where it had like the same type of energy to it. I was like, oh, fly, you can never trust the smart dude walking around with the glasses, bro. You really can't, right? So it's like Flagnards. And then the end of that game, in terms of, whenever you go back to, I think it was the top of Bransell Castle, and you have that final moment with Estelle and Joshua, bro. And then, man, from the kiss to the final lines of dialogue, the outro theme. I mean, I was just sitting there in awe, bro. Like, yo, like, what? Like, that was the fattest cliffhanger I think I had ever experienced up until that point, right? I was like, what? Like, bro, I couldn't even speak correctly. I remember just going ham in my group chat, and shout out to my group chat, bro. And with Roggy, with Shadow, with Laz, with Kisei, because, yo, I spammed so much in that chat because of the series, bro. Like, yo, I remember just spamming the chat, like, bro, what in the Flying Flounders as witness? What is going on? And then with the harmonica and the whereabouts of light, and it's like, bro, so that very same day, after I finished the game, I was gonna let it sink in for a little bit, but I was like, nah, I can't. And then I started SC. SC spoilers from here on, bro, because this game was something special, dog. This game, honestly, I didn't think anything could surpass it in Trails when I finished it. I was dead set. There is no way in the Flagnards that any other game even comes close to the emotions that I felt during SC. And the fact that I was proven wrong several times shows to the genius of this story, man. Because SC, Trails in the Sky, SC. Going off of that massive cliffhanger of Joshua leaving Estelle, bro. And Estelle now having to go on a journey to go find this man, knowing full, because all she wanted was answers, bro. Why? Because she wasn't there for the Wiseman stuff. All she knew was the Joshua that was with her at all times. So when she wakes up at the beginning of SC, and you're going around and trying to find him, you felt that in your heart as well, because you're like, yo, I want answers too. Where's my boy at? Where's Joshua? And it's like, man, especially with the way that everything was building with their relationship romantically towards the end of FC as well. So like, when SC starts, it hits, it hurts. It hurts, man. You're like, yo, where is he at, bro? And so then you start off this app. I mean, yo, everything about SC, from the new gameplay mechanics to the music, bro. Continuous Dream, I think is the name of that song. The one that plays in the Estelle and Joshua scene later on in the game. That is like one of my favorite soundtracks in the entire series, no question. But that one, the soundtrack that plays whenever you first go into the overworld for the first time, it's like dun 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 dun. That one. When I first entered the overworld with that theme, it completely captured the magic of what this game is. It is a search, not only for oneself, but for an individual that one loves, and an attempt to get answers. It was just the perfect soundtrack for all of those emotions. And whenever you first set off on the ship and you meet Kevin Flippy Grab, dude. And it's like, yo, the remixes of so many of the soundtracks in the first game, post time skip Estelle in a couple months, the training with Anelase and the rest of the bracers. And it's like, bro, like, what is this game? And the music, I mean, yo, everything about this game was just so magical, bro. And then as the game progresses and you go through every single chapter, and you get to meet more of the members of Otoboto Switch, to me, without question, is already one of my favorite organizations that I've ever come across, man. And then in this game, whenever you're going through and meeting the members, and then not only as you're meeting the members, you're also meeting the characters that have or you're getting to find out these characters that you've already met with, like your Zin, Shara, and what their connection is to these members of Ouroboros. And it's like, bro, and then even if they didn't already have that connection established, connections within this game were established, like with Ren and Tita, and with Ren and Estelle. And Ren, bro, oh, Ren. But listen, bro. Oh, and like stuff, the side quests in SC were so much fun as well. With like, that's the first time you get your blue blank quests with like Phantom Thief B, and those types of quests. They were so much fun, man. I just overall the whole package of SC was so genius. But I gotta talk about just the story in this one, bro. Listen, dude. I lost my mind for so many parts. I teared up. I was bawling. Leonhardt, the Blade Lord. Leonhardo, the Blade Lord, bro. Yo, I know there's people who have only played Cold Steel. You know, I know there's people who haven't played it from the beginning. There are two things within this Sky Saga where I'm like, I just really wish that those individuals specifically would go back and just experience it just for that. Number one is Estelle and Joshua's relationship. That to me is out of this world, and we'll get to that in just a second. But the second is Leonhardt, the Blade Lord, bro. Oh my. Silver Will, the arranged version. This dude right here. Every single scene within this game, he was in full control, and it made me just more interested and more interested and more interested. There was this one particular line of dialogue that he had with Ren that still stuck with me. That was so beautiful, bro. It was like where he was telling Ren to come up with her own decisions and not just solely rely on what the other members in Ouroboros are like trying to tell her to do. Like, yo, live for yourself and be yourself. And then find those decisions on your own. You know what I'm saying? Have the freedom to have those decisions yourself. And it just, those words always stuck with me as the type of individual that dude is. Because what a special character he is, man. And Ouroboros as an organization is really special, but whenever I think back to why that organization is as special as it is, it's because it has characters like a Leonhardt the Blade Lord and a Ren in it. Like, God, man. The way that the threads were connecting within the story, the closer that Estelle gets to Joshua, and then whenever you finally get to see him for the first time, and he's with the Kapuas, and on the ship with the bandits, you're like, why in the flying notes is he with them? And you see the way that he's interacting with them, you get to see his new design, the way that he's acting now, and it's like, come back home, come back home. And then like, yo, just the way that everything continues to build and build and build, and Estelle just continues to bring more people into her cause because people know how much she truly loves Joshua, and is on this journey to go find him. They want to go help her, man, and they want to go help and stop Ouroboros at the same time as well. So like, while they're trying to figure out the mysteries and figure out the answers, Estelle's trying to figure out the answers of her own as well, man. But she's still, even with all these struggles and with all these things she's going through, she's still leading this whole pack, and she's still helping others with their problems, even though her problems are in the critical levels. And it's made Estelle one of my favorite characters in the story, man. And she's such an, she's goated. But, man, dude. Like the moments with Tita and Agate, whenever Tita stops Lewe from hating Agate. Moments like that, you know, those emotional highs that this game has, they're second to none, bro. I mean, they were so good. And like, man, even in, like, the individuals from, what was it, from Bose, the water city, with Agate's I forgot what their names were at this point in time, but his crew, that he left, like the delinquents, the individuals, so like one of them had red hair, green hair. Like whenever you're fighting them, he'd be like, "Yo, get up, you lazy bastard," or whatever. Like they would get up. Those guys, even they got their moments within this game. It's like every single character had their time to shine. And, you know, just as a fan of villainous organizations, just to see that I was and normally when a villainous organization is in there, they're the star of the show for me. And to know that there was a villainous organization as top tier as Ouroboros, and they were not my main stars of this show, shows how special this game was. It shows, man, because they were legendary. And that leads me into when this game went from amazing to top 10 all time for me, bro. Yo, when you are on the Glorious, Estel's captured, you're on your lonesome, and you have the conversation with Lewe, and you go around, you're trying to get yourself out of there, you meet all of the other members in that piano room, you go back outside, and waiting for you outside to help you out is the very person who you've been trying to go find this entire time. Joshua's there. He takes off the mask. He was cosplaying as a Jaeger. Mans takes off the mask, and it's Estelle and Joshua escaping together. All this, I was like, yeah. I mean, bro. I remember jumping out of my seat, running over my brother's room, and I was just shaking uncontrollably, bro. I was like, yeah, let's go. And like that, and then when they crash down from there, and you have that moment of legend with Estelle and Joshua, where Estelle, for this entire story up until this point, she'd been like, yo, what am I going to say to him when I see him again? And she was even struggling with that whenever she was talking to Lewe on the Glorious. But then Josh was just like pouring his entire heart out to her. And then Estelle just stops her, or stops him. And just starts speaking from the heart. And my tears started rolling. That one godly soundtrack, I think it's called Continuous Dream, started playing. When that started hitting and Joshua started crying, bro, that's when I knew it was over. That's when I knew this game was peak fiction. I was like, yo, this is gold, man. Like, which is why, like, whenever I'm talking to you like this about this game, I'm like, I can't believe the other games matched up to the Motion Live SC, bro. I can't, dude. It's madness. It's like, yo, and God, after that, whenever they're back and finally together and seeing how everybody else reacted to him coming back home, and it's like he never left, bro. It's like, Agate and Olivier, Shara, Cassio, the Cassius and Joshua moment hit right here, son. Hit so, man. And you get to that final chapter, which I'll never forget when I first saw the title of that, Trails in the Sky. And you go up to the Aureole, Skypea, on some Chrono Trigger stuff, in order to just put a stop to Ouroboros' plans, and just the way that the boss battles were handled, you know, with like Walter and Zen, the Ren, oh man, dude, the Ren plotline. I'll get to that in a later game, but the entire Ren storyline is one of my favorite parts of the entire franchise, bro. It's so beautiful, dog. But, you know, whenever you find out well, actually, I never even mentioned this earlier, Ren actually being a member of Ouroboros shocked the flag nerds. I mean, I was so shook. Especially when I found out that her parents weren't actually her parents. I was like, yo! I was like, watch out, bro. It's just incredible how those threads were put in so early on. But, like, all those continuous boss battles with, like, Walter and Luciola, and then eventually whenever you get to Lewe, man. And then whenever Wiseman shows up, forces Joshua to turn by controlling him in the way that he always has. But that moment during the final sequence when Lewe gives his life to save them, bro, and those final words that he gave, and then before that, the moments with Estelle and Joshua, where Joshua's about to kill Estelle, bro, and she's sitting there taking it. She's like, yo, oh my, bro, that junk had me like bawling like a baby, dude. That is still, I think, in my top 5 favorite scenes in the whole series. I didn't even top 3. That scene was so phenomenal. The way that it was handled, the voice act, everything. Everything. And then when Joshua claps back at Wyson right after that, that's still like Joshua, I was like, ah! Like, dude, it's the perfect like, emotional high on both standpoints, from both a hype standpoint and from a just tearing up and the entire journey culminating here standpoint, man. And that final boss sequence where you're fighting like all those forms of wise men, and it was just nuts. And then at the very end, you find out who Kevin mother flipping Graham really is. This dude, this troll who's been with him this entire time, who's been helping Estelle, stay true to herself and towards this path. You find out who he really is, man. A member of the Growls Ritter. And he goes out and he just pones Wiseman. You get to see serious Kevin Graham for the first time. And it's like, yo. But then, everybody's stories culminate there. And, with Sharon, Luciola, Walter, and Zinn. And then you want to find out what happens to Ren. And just everything was so incredible about that entire final sequence, bro. The entire game as a whole was just so incredible. And I think that's SC to me, like end of FC to SC was like my Arlong Park in Alabasta, One Piece terms, where that's where I truly was like, yo, this is my jam. Like, I love this, man. This is special. And then of course at the end of credits, where they go to Hamel, and they have those moments in front of Lewa's grave with Estelle and Joshua, and they go out holding hands to end the credits. I mean, it was the best possible way to end that game, because you had spent that entire game trying to get him back, and even whenever you did have him back, there was still all those troubles, and it was just such a beautiful journey, bro. It truly is. Like I said, I didn't think anything else was gonna match up to it, and the fact that I don't even know if it's my favorite game in the franchise, because I honestly, at this point in time, I have 2 games above it, which is madness, but we'll get to that in a second. But SC was special. It was so beautiful. But yeah, man, absolute greatness, bro. Trails in the Sky SC, amazing game. But yeah, let's get into the third spoilers. I couldn't believe this game caught me so off guard, because I thought this was going to be the 3rd chapter in Estelle and Joshua's journey. I thought this game was going to take us into Crossbell or into Erebonia, because I thought we were going to follow Estelle and Joshua's journey into one of those places. So when the game starts off with Kevin, and you're in the prologue, and at first you don't know if it's Kevin, but everybody knows it's Kevin because of the green hair. Slick back hair, and he's over here. You hear the goat. I love the battle theme for 3rd. Like, oh, that was that heat. But then you find out it's Kevin, and you're going on, and then you see the masked individuals show up, and you're like, what the flying flatness is going on? And then you get to see Rias, and she joins, and you're like, yo, you're actually Kevin's the main character of this game. And it was just so mind-blowing to me. It was like, after coming off of Estelle and Joshua's magnificent journey, the best thing you could possibly do is give the keys to someone else for the time being. So it's like, yo, to have especially since I'm going to assume that they were trying to make this like of course they were trying to make the series as big as it possibly can be, but to switch main characters like that, I was like, now I understand why Kevin had so much screen time in SC. And so whenever you're going through the 3rd, especially in those beginning stages, and you're like, yo, where's this all gonna lead? And then it leads into Phantasma, man. And dude, this game was an emotional roller coaster from beginning to end. There are so many moments in this game that had me on the brink of just tearing up so badly, bro. Especially when it comes to Kevin's story, when it comes to everything revolving around his plotline, especially when we get to find out the truth about why it is that he is the way that he is, and is so dead set on this mission of his, right? But before we get into that and more stuff with Kevin, man, I wanna talk about the genius of this game's Star Door system, because I absolutely loved it. The Star Door system was so fantastic to me because it allowed me an opportunity to take a break from the main game in the same way that side quests would normally do, in order to go back and experience either what was going on before this event with certain characters or even beyond that with other characters. And so whenever you go through certain doors, and like for example like the Tita and Tita's mom, like seeing her for the first time, that was awesome for me. That moment with Joshua and Chloe at that party, that was an amazing one. Oh my god. The Olivier and Chancellor Osborne one, bro. Especially with stuff that happens later on, dog. The boo with the roses. Goated. Goated. The Estelle and Joshua one where Joshua first comes home, and Estelle and Joshua building their relationship, that was one of my favorites. That one was so beautiful. I have so many pictures from that one, with her holding the massive big beetle thing, and just that was precious. And the last two star doors, which it took so much work to unlock them, but they were so worth it, man. With Ren's backstory, that one really broke me, bro. Figuring out the truth behind Ren and how important that is, and it has been for the entire story up to this point in time. Like the third has so many concepts that were introduced in that game throughout the Star Doors, or through the game itself, that have become so important to where we are right now. And then Star Door 14 with, I still think back to that one. I have so many pictures of that one. With finally getting to hear the Grand Master for the first time, and with Campanella, man, one of the most interesting characters in the story for sure. And the meeting, and then you get to see the Anguis, and it's like, yo, amazing door, and everything about it, and with the other members as well, and it was just so great. But yeah, man, it's Celeste D. Auslis, because I remember in the SC, whenever you're going through the terminals and whatnot, you would see that name come up quite a bit. But to actually see Celeste, you're like, yo, like this is an individual of legend. This is like meeting Joy Boy or something, right? It's like, holy flagners. It's like you meet Celeste the name's leaving right now. Anyways, then whenever you get to that final section, man, with Kevin, and you really start diving into his stuff, and like serious Kevin always got me hyped in the game, and his relationship with Rias was so awesome. But especially during the last portion, man, it was just so great. And you're going down the levels on some Dante's Inferno stuff, going down, and you're fighting all these enemies that you fought before, and they're much stronger now. Some of them are even regular enemies now. And once you get to the bottom, you have that situation, that moment with Weissman and Kevin once again, and then it all culminates, man, in the truth, and in the final boss battle with Kevin finally coming face to face with this individual that he's loved for so long, and you get to find out the truth, man, that he was the one who originally killed her, and and the whole stigma situation, and just the way that it was all built up, how the concepts were all put into play beforehand, but to see how all those concepts and all those things were put in before for this truth to hit as hard as it would. It was just so great, man. The third was special because it provided so much context, and not only a brand new journey and a brand new story, but like so much context into certain characters that I had always wanted to see and know better and more. And we got that in a lot of different ways. And then, getting to have like all the party members come together again, and a lot of them are like post time skip uniforms, actually being able to use certain characters for the first time, like Rit Allen and whatnot. It was just so good. And then Ren, whenever she joins your party, and then that final thing with that final moment with Ren, Estelle, and Joshua at the very end, and then the goodbye between Kevin and it was greatness, bro. Greatness, man. Like, Kevin's story was so good, and just the overall thing of the third, man, is just I miss that Star Door system, bro. That was so good, and they've told me that it comes back in a later installment that hasn't been localized yet, so I'm looking forward to that. But and then of course like the mini games and stuff like that. It just made for such an incredible experience, bro. Alrighty, man. It's Recon from Phantasma, coming in and cutting in right quick. I just have to give one quick final thought when it comes to the third, because I just really, really enjoyed the relationship between Kevin, Rufina, and Rias. And Kevin in particular is a character that still to this very day, his story has stuck with me. And there was this one particular line that he had, I believe it was in the face-off against Weissman, toward the end of the third, where he states, "Because for every hardship, there will be just as much joy waiting for me." And I feel like that is the message of his character, because, you know, he's gone through so much, and he continues to battle through it, and even more obstacles continue to come in his way. But he realizes that even with all of the things that have already taken place, and even with all the things that will inevitably happen in the future, with every hardship that comes, there'll be an equal amount of joy, or even more joy than that very same hardship, you know, waiting for him. And that line is so beautiful coming from him, knowing what he went through, knowing what he had to do, and knowing what he knew he was about to have to do after this battle, once he came face to face once again with Rufina. And it was so incredible, because I feel like this very same thing applied also to the Joshua and Lewe fight from the third as well. But especially for Kevin, man. And you know, those final lines of dialogue between Kevin and Rufina really, really hurt, especially whenever he himself started tearing up. That one hit hard, man. And so whenever I think of his character, that's the one line I go back to, and I'm like, that's why he's in my S tier. Because of that theme being the central message in his character arc. And, man, dude, just what an awesome character. And his fighting style just so dope, dude. I mean, come on. Man uses a bow. Like, you know, you're a boss if you use a bow in this series. You know what I'm saying? So, like, I love it. And it's kind of like a bow gun, honestly. But it's mad dope. And he has some of my favorite arts and crafts in the entire series. So shout out to my boy Kevin, man. I just wanted to cut in and talk about him a little more, because he is such an important character to the overall story. And whenever he had that moment later on, whenever you actually do get the name that he chose, it's so cool, and it ties everything back together really nicely. And man, I just, some of that stuff surrounding his character in the third, just it hit home, and it hit in all the right spots. So shout out to my boy Kevin, man. Also, that Cassius boss fight was awesome, dude. When Silver Will started playing and my man said, "Defeat me, that is all," and then proceeded to go absolutely in, bro. That boss fight was awesome. But now we get into the games that made me a fan forever. Now we get into the games that made me a fan of this right here, man. Give me a second. These two games right here, bro. This saga made me a fan forever. This to me was like Water 7 in Easy Lobby. This to me was like Chimera. This to me was like so many of these parts of stories that from that moment on, I know for a fact that I'm a fan forever. I was in a Discord call the night that I started this game with my man Laz, Commodore Laz, because he was helping me set it up and whatnot, because of the issues with this franchise, or with this select few games. They haven't been localized yet and whatnot. So it's like I was trying to set it up. I didn't know what to do, and I finally got it working. And then I screen shared it with him just to make sure it was the right game. He was like, "Yo, it's the right game." So I played the entire first portion with Laz, right? And on Discord. And I'll never forget when that first little intro segment ends and you come in on the train and that one soundtrack starts playing, from that moment until I finished this, I was completely and utterly invested. I'm talking about every single day I was in this chair playing that game after work. Every day. I did not miss a single day while playing Zero no Kiseki and Ao no Kiseki, man. Oh my god, Crossbell, bro. Lloyd. Where's my Santa hat, bro? Lloyd flipping Bannings, bro. Lloyd. I love so many characters in this franchise, man. Some characters that we're gonna get to in later games. Some characters we've already talked about. But I think still my number one favorite character in this series at this point in time is Lloyd, bro. That dude right there is just, that's my guy. That is my boy, dog. He always has the drip, the rawness. He knows exactly what to say. He's not perfect. He has flaws, but that's whenever others help him, man. And they help him realize exactly what it is that he needs to be and what he needs to do, because he's their leader. And so even with all of his flaws, even though he never has all the answers, he still does the very best thing that he can do, bro. He tries to overcome that barrier. And like just the entire concept of his character, for being a detective, and just the fighting style, the story behind him, the drip. I was like, yo, this is my dude. Especially in Azure, man. And we'll get to that in a second. But Zero. I talked about this whenever I first caught up, or whenever I first finished Zero, and I made a post on Twitter about it. But Zero legitimately made me feel like a kid again, because while playing through Zero, I wanted to draw fan art, which is something I haven't done in years. I want to draw fan art of the special support section, of Lloyd, of Randy, Tio, and Ellie. I was like, yo, I gotta draw some fan art or something, bro. I love these characters too much. And like, it just made me feel like a kid again, because while playing Zero, I was so hooked. Even at the beginning, just to the gameplay, I was like, bro, I thought I'd already gotten past the point of being addicted to the gameplay. I thought I would just be a story man from here on out when it comes to games. Unless it's like a heavy game, but like for games like this, for like a JRPG, nah, bro. But in this one, with how insanely well crafted it was, with like the gameplay system and with the story, like everything about the gameplay was so incredible to me, bro. From you know what? Not even that. The side quests, bro. I legit had there were certain days where I remember being be out and about at work, and I would be thinking like, Flagnards, I can't wait to get home and do a side quest. I can't wait to go home and find out what new side quest there is for me to do. What new special support request I can do to go help the people of Crossbell. To find out more about the city, to find out more about its inhabitants, in order to get a stronger connection to the characters. Like, yo, everything. I'm talking about the entire package that was Zero no Kiseki, man. Had me so invested from the very, very beginning that I heard that soundtrack. The CSPD soundtrack is such a banger. The Afternoon Crossbell soundtrack is such a banger. This game was like York knew, bro, where it was like, yo, everything just started off, you're seeing all these pieces come into play, and then one starts popping off. It's popping off, son, and you have that connection to the characters. But I love that main force so much, bro. Like, that's the special support section, and as you move on, you get Zeit in the game as well. It's like, it's so good, bro. And just, man, like, the music, man. The music is out of this world for Zero. It's out of this world, bro. That's the one I've listened to the most. is the Zero soundtrack at this point in time. It's just so good, dog. Every soundtrack is a banger. The town themes, the battle themes, getting over the barrier, both that and the roaring version, I think are my favorite battle themes. Period. Period. I think they might be my favorite battle themes. Not only just in this, but I think in any game. That battle theme, Get Over the Barrier, is a banger. It goes in hard, dude. But man, bro. Like, man, some of those side stories were so special in Zero, dog. And, like, they were so different from each other. Like, you would be doing actual police work. They were doing, like, some sort of, like, bracer work. And, like, every chapter, they were always different. It's like you almost never repeated a side quest unless it was hunting a monster in, like, Geofront or something like that. And it was so GOAT. But man, I remember being so invested and so hooked and loving the game so much. But then, when you get to the auction, oh my god, dude. When you get to the auction, I loved this part with every fiber of my being. Like I was telling y'all earlier, infiltration and escape missions are my jam. We're going to talk about an escape one in Azure here in a second. But in this game, when you're infiltrating that house, that mansion, I should say, and you're dressed up, Lloyd with the suit, shades on, gang gang, and you're going around just trying to figure out the truth about what's taking place here in the auction, and you're trying to get it back, and you're trying to move forward here, and you're trying to figure out just what in the flying flagnards is actually going down here with, like, the mafia, and just everything that's been culminating. There's so many things happening behind the scenes that have been taking place throughout the entirety of the game. You're like, yo. You go around and about, you ask everyone everything, and then you meet Kia, bro. And then you bring her back. And that's when stuff really, really starts hitting, dude. First of all, bless Kia. Bless Kia and Kagura's voice actress, man. I mean, just A1. That is daughter. That is daughter Kia, man. Flipping flagnards, dude. I don't remember if this particular quest, because like I said, I've only gone through the games once, so I don't remember the exact order of things, especially for Zero. Because I was going ham so hard on that game. But there was this one particular quest that I loved a lot. Whenever you're in Ark Seal, and you're with Ellie, or I think you get to choose, but I think I chose to go with Ellie, as I did for a lot of my situations, because I wanted Ellie and Lloyd to be together, which is why, like, a lot of those scenes later on hit so hard. That was one of the scenes actually that really brought me into Zero's story early on. Whenever you have that moment alone with Ellie and Lloyd on the roof, and you're just talking about each other's stories and whatnot. But that particular portion in Ark and Seal, whenever they're going around and they're trying to find if anything's really going to happen in Ark and Seal that night. And so you're going around, you're investigating, you're going back and forth, you're investigating. I loved that part, bro. Excuse me. I really, really loved it. Because you're doing police work, but at the same time, like, especially in the way that those games allow you to take full control of Lloyd's decisions. So, like, it's like you're the detective that's in charge. Like, you yourself, because you actually make the decisions for Lloyd, and if he gets something wrong, then they're going to call you out on it. But if you get it right, it's like, oh, Lloyd, you're right, and stuff. So it kind of made you feel good, too. You're like, yeah, you get the satisfaction that Lloyd will feel in that moment. And they made it, like I said, for some really immersive moments. But that particular one really stood out to me, to where, okay, we started the special support section. We don't know why specifically it was started, but these individuals were brought together. Now they're really they're starting to become a family. Certain things have taken place. They've gone on their missions together. They've gone through many different portions together. Now this is a really important mission, man. It's something that only the police can do. So you're on this police mission. You're investigating. You're trying to figure out, and you're trying to stop something from taking place. Because you're like, yo, think something could pop off here in this Arc and Seal performance. And so you get to even peek and see a little bit of their performance. And shout out to Rixia, man, or what is it? It's Hirisha. But yeah, shout out to Baby Girl, and Arc and Seal as a whole, because like that entire thing was so dope to me, in the way that they would like specifically talk about or I shouldn't even say talk, on how they would connect their form of art with like certain fighting styles. And I found that to be so dope, because she's so good at performing here. You can tell, like, whenever she's out in battle as Yin, and like is doing all these crazy and insane moves. Like, yo, of course you can make a career out of that. You know, with the way you're bouncing around and doing all those things, like you're dancing in ballet or something. It was just so dope to me, and the way they connected those two things. And then finding out that she was Yin completely shocked me. I was like, I mean, I had a feeling, but like to see whenever she was jumping on the roof, and I was like, oh snap, I guess she is Yin. So but that was cool. But yeah, man, that portion right there, whenever you get to figure out that one of the individuals from Ellie's past was like the I forgot dude's name, but the one that you had been with up until that point in time, and you see him every now and then. He even tried inviting you back to the McDowell, like little thing that they were creating in order so that Ellie can move forward in that career, instead of being in the career here as a member of the special support section. And so whenever you get to figure out that it was him that was actually planning to go out and do this assassination and whatnot, and then he starts escaping, you have to chase him down, and then you get to see him with the red eyes, and it's like, yo, whenever I saw that, actually, by the way, in Crossbell, with like the whole red eyes thing and how they talk about genosis, it really put into perspective just how much planning and care is put into the series, because I remember that plot line being brought up in FC, and like, yo, where's this gonna go? And you would see the answers to it every now and then, like within Sky, but in Crossville, you get the payoff to that storyline from FC. And it's like, yo, from all the way back then, now we see this brought up again. And so now it's having a way bigger impact, because now you're getting members of the Mafia involved into it. Now you're getting individuals that you once knew that are having their emotions changed by it. And it's like, yo, what is going on? Who is doing all of this? And that's whenever, once again, another dude with glasses is the individual behind it all. And so then you go back to where you start off in the beginning of the game. And by the way, now that I just remembered, in Crossbell, especially whenever I was first starting to get to meet the special support section, and I wasn't as invested in their characters as I was, of course, in the Sky cast, because I had been with them for so long at that point. I remember spending the first couple chapters just stalking Estelle and Joshua, like every single time, especially after when they first showed up, I was losing my absolute mind. And when they came up and stopped the monsters from attacking the bus and whatnot, I was like, yeah, Estelle and Joshua here. And just seeing them in the new art style, and seeing like how much they've grown and how they're going ham, and they're utilizing techniques now, just regular techniques that they used to have as ultimates and as S-crafts back in the day. It was just so good. And so just seeing them and how they're going about their journey, they're still trying to find Ren, and then you yourself as a special support section, you find Ren, and you're connecting those two storylines together, and then once like it culminates at the end of the game, and it's Ren and it's Estelle, it's Joshua together. It was just so beautiful, bro. That's one of my favorite scenes of the game in Zero. Is that a final Estelle, Joshua, and Ren scene when she finally accepts it, man. It's like, yo, I want to be with you. Goated. And when Ren is forced to listen to like her parents, like her actual real parents, especially after getting the backstory in the third, and it's God, man, Ren's storyline was so fantastic. And then by the end of the game, whenever I was so immersed and invested and in love with the special support section, you finally get the beginning of the game again happening. Except, we'll talk about that in Azure. That was crazy, dude. That was a crazy twist. But you get to the beginning of the game, and like that the first initial section. Except this time, Estelle and Josh are with you. And now you're going around and you're poning, and it was so hard for me at the time because I was like, yo, who am I gonna take out the party? I love every single one of these characters, and they've been in the party for so long, right? So, but I had to make the sacrifice because I was like, bro, I had to put Estelle and Joshua in there. Like, the whole game has been building up to it. I have to have the goats all together, right? So I did that, fought the final bosses, and it just created for such an incredible experience. All together in Zero, bro. I had so much fun with that game, and like I said, it reminded me of just being a kid and playing my PS2 or my PS1 on the way home, like reading my manual and just wanting to come home and try out all these new things in the game, and instead of it being mainly just trying to find inspiration or trying to get immersed in the story, it became more of an overall experience as a video game. And I genuinely looked forward to the gameplay aspects as much as I did the storytelling aspects. And I think that's something that merely made Crossbell special for me, because the entire package was just so gold, man. And now we get to Azure. I think it's between this and a game that we're gonna get to later on as my favorite game in the franchise, and one of my favorite games of all time. Azure is when I really became a tard. All right. Azure made the special support section one of my favorite casts ever, and Azure made Lloyd one of my favorite main protagonists ever. Literally from the moment the game starts, when you're out there and when you're with Adios, you're with Detective Dudley, and it's like, yo, hold on, what are we doing? And from there you go back home and you find out the special support section has been disbanded. And so now it becomes we have to get everyone together once again. And so slowly but surely, but there's a new special support section. And the new special support section are some of the characters that you've met in the first game. Like Noelle, who's so awesome, and Wazy Hemisphere. And Wazy and Wald's stuff in the first game, I was really invested in that because I love the aesthetic of having this take place in a town like Crossbell, in like the back alleys. Well, also there's mafia stuff taking place as well, right? So it was really cool to have all that taking place, and like the fact that you're a policeman and have to investigate all this stuff. It was made for a really dope time while doing all that stuff. But yo, man, I don't even know where to begin with this game, bro. I don't, dude. I don't know where to begin. Like, I'm sweating just thinking about it. I have so many pictures. I think this is the game where I took the most pictures. It's between this and Cold Steel 3 and 2 as the most pictures that I took. I have so many pictures of Azure. I think this takes up like half my camera roll. It's just straight up Azure pictures. Madness. Dude. Kevin showing up. Right, Kevin. I was like, this is going to be insane. Kevin's here. We already saw Estelle and Joshua's involvement in Crossbell. What is going to go on? And so, you start off this journey. And you're going through, a lot of the stuff is very similar, where you're going off with the requests and whatnot, and just trying to move forward while also trying to get answers. You know, of course, Kia is growing with you and whatnot, but there's things that are moving in the background that make it extremely interesting. And then you don't have all of your party members back yet. And so once you start getting everyone back together, you know, like Randy, and Randy's story in this game, bro. Ellie, Tio, like everyone's coming back. And every time one of them came back and showed up, I was like, yes, the goats are back, right? And so finally, whenever you get them all back together, And it's like sometimes whenever you would get some back, others would have to go and do their own thing. But eventually there was a point in time where you had them all together, right? And you would have to go out and do all these missions together, especially whenever you had to do like certain missions. I remember there was this one quest where you had to get everybody's favorite like you had to go try out a whole bunch of foods at restaurants, and then come back with like a report of everybody's favorite foods from these restaurants in order to report it to the magazine. And stuff like that just made that entire experience so goated. But then you get to the conference, man. And by this point, you'd already met Sigmund, bro. Sigmund and Shirley of Red Constellation. And you're like, Phylagnards. And like, that entire situation with them and with Randy. And then slowly but surely get to find out what's going on with his story as well, right? And actually, I'm gonna talk about the trade conference and I'll talk about everything else, bro. Because at the trade conference, as a One Piece fan, that was heaven on earth. Seeing all these characters come together in one place. I mean, Chloe showing up, Olivier showing up, Osborne, right? The individual that represents Calvert, and then of course you would have Mayor Cross, and then of course you're the one in charge of the what's that called, of the security. There, I'm already starting to lose my mind. I'm telling you, this game is too gory. And it's like, so they're in charge of the security here. And you have to go around in the same way that you did in the first game for the auction. Or in the auction and in Ark and Seal. Here, you have to do it for this massive trade conference. It's like, you know what you have to do. You know you have to go around and patrol. But what's going to happen? And once stuff starts popping off and things start going up in like swimwear, from then until up in the end of the game, it's just non-stop insanity, bro. So many incredible moments. Lloyd and Randy, when Lloyd brings back Randy the first time, was at that point in time one of my favorite moments in the story, bro. I said that so many times during this game, but when I first experienced that, whenever Lloyd grabs him by the neck, it's like, yo, what do you think we're here for? And like that entire moment with Lloyd and Randy was so cool. That's whenever I really started being like, yo, Lloyd is my goat, dude. And then you start moving forward and in all of the different plot elements, and God, man, this stuff. You get to a certain point where right after the trade conference, you see like all the members of Ouroboros here. You get to see what they do to the Guerrilla Fortress in Erebonia, and oh god, man, what the connection that has to Cold Steel. But like, you get to see all these things taking place. You get to find out the meaning behind certain, like the Azure flowers, like these cryptids showing up, and things really start going in. You get to find out more truths and get more invested into each of the storylines of the characters of your main cast, especially with like the whole thing happening with Randy, right? But then there came a certain moment, man. You know what, bro? I'm gonna go through my phone right quick, bro, because like I said, I took so many pictures, dude. Where is it? Yo. Aryan Rod. There was a moment where Aryan Rod destroyed Ricia's mask. And then Adios is there too. And it was like, because the level of respect between Adios and Aryan Rod was so goat, right? And then directly after that, you had the moment with Randy and Shirley, and of course with Randy and Lloyd. It was such an incredible moment, bro. And then this right here, man. In front of Sigmund, like, yo, as Randy, the special support section. Oh man, and then seeing Kilika again, that was huge in Azure, bro. That was massive. Maria Bell, dude, and her twist of like Flagnards, and then in the middle of all of that, Adios as well joins them. Adios, bro, and then Noelle switches on you too, but it's like you know that they don't want to do it, but they have to, dog. And like all that stuff started popping off, and you have those conversations with Shizuku, and that's whenever Noelle puts Lloyd in jail. And this is where this series and this game transcend. I mean, it went into that SSS tier for me, because that prison breakout section is one of the, it's hard to say if it was the one where I got the most hyped, but it's tied for like number one, because when Lloyd's down there and you meet up with Garcia, of all people, Garcia from the last game, it's like, yo, I just imprisoned this dude, and now we're gonna escape together. And Lloyd's determination, no matter if they snapped his legs, broke his arms, he was getting out of there and getting back to the special sports section. He was getting Kia back, damn it. And so that entire breakout section was just so hype. Inevitable struggle playing the entire section. It was just so flipping goat. And as you go out of there and you go back, and it's in order to meet up with everyone else, this was so goated, dude. Like, yo, legendary. Like, yo, even so, if no one stands up, nothing will ever change. I can't just go with the flow. I have to see the truth with my own eyes, and to take back those I care about. I'll never give up. And what made this part so goat is that Lloyd he works for the police, bro, and he's always been about doing things right. But there comes a situation where you put those you care about over doing things quote unquote right by the standards of everyone else. Because right now he's breaking out of prison, bro. Like, he shouldn't be. That's not something that he should be doing as a policeman. But what makes him so great is that it's something he should be doing, because he's going by his morals and what he believes in, rather than what the new standard in living has become. And it's like, yo, it was so good. And then finding out that Zeit was a divine wolf, and then finding out that Wazy was a dominion for the Growls Ritter, like, Flagnards. And then the entire final chapter, bro. Whenever you go out and you're fighting Noelle, you bring Noelle back to you. Everyone finally joins back your squad. You go out and fight Aryan Rod. Oh my god. That Aryan Rod boss fight with that legendary unfathomed force. Oh, one of my favorite boss fights of all time. Of all time. Period. No question. One of the greatest boss fights I have ever done. One of my favorites for sure. I remember it was so goated because whenever you're fighting against Aryan Rod, if you don't win, like, you have to break her mask. And if she one-shots your party, which she did to me the first time, you only get to see like a first piece of dialogue that you would normally get if you didn't beat her, but if you just took out her mask. And I remember not being able to beat her the first time. So like, I only got her mask off, but I felt like I wanted to continue. Like, there was something inside me burning where I was like, yo, I gotta do that again. I have to do that again. And so you go back to, or I went back the moment that I loaded up into the next part. I immediately went back, loaded my save from before that fight, and did the fight again. Because I refused to go down without beating Aryan Rod. You feel I refused to continue. I was like, yo, I have to beat it, because that was just how amazing that boss fight was. And it took me like 3 hours, honestly, man. Like, keeping it 100 with y'all. It took me so long to finally get past that part to a point to where I felt satisfied. And it was because fighting Aryan Rod reminded me of whenever I was a kid, fighting Sephiroth at the end of Kingdom Hearts 2, and how big of a challenge that was for a child me, and how in school you'd be known as legendary if you took out Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts 2, the one like 15 health bars. And Aryan Rod was that type of boss to me, and like I said, with the Crossbell games really reminded me and bringing me back to how I felt as a child playing video games, of Like, yo, like everything about these games were so special. Like, the story, of course, was absolutely magnificent, and the characters as well. But to be able to remind me of those special times playing video games whenever I was a kid in so many different ways, and to rejuvenate and reignite the flames of love for gaming, like just actually playing video games, it was so gold, bro. And it really reminded me of those times as a kid, man. And that Arya Rod boss fight was definitely one of those moments for me. But then after that, whenever you get to that final section, the Azure tree, and you have to go into every single member's portion. God, man, I remember going through Shirley's and Sigmund's, and everyone's gonna be like, man, like, this is awesome, dude. Like, they all have their own special little dungeon areas. But Arios is my favorite, bro. The music that plays in his section was absolutely amazing. I listen to that soundtrack all the time. I don't know the name of the soundtrack because it's in Japanese, but I listen to that soundtrack in the arrange Zero no Kiseki thing all the time, bro. And then being able to fight Adios, that was one of the most Santa level moments, dude. Like, yo, being able to fight Adios is respecting you, and then finally, because after you left off last time fighting Adios, he's like, yo, I'm the one that killed your brother. I'm the one that killed Guy. And knowing the how much Dudley and Adios and Guy, that connection between those characters, like how big and important that was. I was like, bro, there has to be more to this, man. There has to be. And so whenever Lloyd heads off and he has his brother's tonfas now, so now Lloyd, carrying on Guy's will, is fighting against Adios, and you beat Adios, and Adios finally tells you the story of what actually took place. Like, how it wasn't him that actually killed him, it was Ian. You know, that was a massive twist for me. Finding out that this lawyer who had his thing in everybody's pockets was actually the individual behind everything. It made so much sense, but it just caught me so off guard. And he was actually the true mastermind behind everything. But it was like, yo, I think the Mario Bell one was one that caught me the most off guard, because I like, it just felt so right, like, especially how Maria Bell was always there for, like, to help you out for those big moments. And I remember that one side quest that you did where you would have to find her dolls from the whole Blue Bank thing, and I was like, man, dude. And like finding out the importance of those dolls later on and whatnot, and like who created those dolls, and I was like, yo, yo, that's some amazing how to implement something into a side quest that could become important later on. And of course, Mario Bell being there in the auction where you first meet Kia and everything, like, it was just mad important. So like, you're there, and like that entire audio scene with him explaining the truth about Guy and him, that junk had me balling, bro. That junk hit so hard. And you're finally able to go into the final area, and this entire final area for me was peak fiction, bro. I mean, like, everything from the prison onward was peak fiction. Everything from you escaping the prison onward was just so phenomenal. Like, I can't even begin to explain to you how much I love that escaping the prison part, bro. Like, that part legitimately made me tired forever. And then, like, the audio stuff took us to that next level, and of course, like, the whole thing bringing Noelle back, and it's just that entire section, you know, just the importance and how much the special support section loves each other. But this final part was like whenever the Straw Hats went to go face CP9 on Annie's lobby, bro, and like Kia's right there, you're finally able to get her back, and then Maria Bell and Ian are the only ones standing in your way, and now it's time to go ham. And you're going into like Swimwear and all different boss battles, and you have to fight Kia at the very end. But then you have that final couple of cutscenes, bro, and those cutscenes to me still right now where I stand in this series are also just like the Estelle and Joshua scene from SC, also in my favorite scenes in the entire series. The scene with Guy and Lloyd, I did not expect that in the slightest, man, and that one hit so hard. It really, really did, bro. That scene hit really, really hard, and then the scene with Kia and Lloyd hit just as hard as that, man. And what I love so much from a storytelling standpoint is where the game decides to end. Because the game ends, and you're left with like, yo, what happens to them now? And what I didn't know at the time is that the Cold Steel games, the first two, take place at the exact same time as the Crossbell games. And I was like, that's why we don't know. And at the end of Azure, you get like this montage of things that took place afterwards. Like things taking place from the perspective of the special support section while certain things are happening in Cold Steel. And it's like, oh, that's where that was implemented. And it made so much sense once I played Cold Steel 1 and 2, where I was like, flagnards. And man, just Azure was so special, bro. Like everything, every twist, every turn, every moment with those characters, every emotional moment, every comedic moment, every side quest. The Crossbell games were just so special, and for sure, they were my favorite, like undisputed my favorites, until I finished Cold Steel 3, bro. Until I finished Cold Steel 3, I was like, yo, it's between one of the two, dude. Like, it was just so... I'll get to that in a little bit, man. Oh, man, but Azure was so special. I love the special support section so much, bro. Like those characters, the moments that you have with them, the quests, the emotional moments between the characters, and then just Lloyd, man, and their determination together to take on anything. Like those four took on the world, bro. They took on every single thing you could possibly imagine. They were outclassed and they made it through with the will, bro. Like it was just overcoming any barrier. They can do it together. That was the theme of these games, and that's what made them so special to me, bro. I absolutely adore the Crossbell games, man. And I think that's why things hit as hard as they did later on, man. It's time to talk about Cold Steel, bro. Now, I hinted about it earlier that there was one character that is stopping Lloyd from being my undisputed number one right now. Actually, no, there's two. Because I feel like it's between Lloyd and main characters, right? It's between, Lloyd right now is number one. But fighting for that number two right now is Estelle. And of course, my boy, Mr. Drip, Rawness, and Swag. Mr. Going in like swimwear, going ham, dripped out, always looking fresh, and delivering lines of legend. My boy Reen Schwarzer, bro. Yo, I didn't know how much I needed a game built in a school setting again until I started playing Cold Steel 1. I was like, yo, this is exactly what I needed. Because coming off of Sky 1 and 2, with the adventure, with bracers and whatnot, it kind of feels like a Sky Pirates type of thing. And the third, going around as members of the church and whatnot, and especially in like in Phantasm and whatnot, going for a very supernatural game, and it was so different, it was so great. And then working as policemen in the special support section in Crossbell, it's like, yo, goated. And then, now, in a military academy in Erebonia. And I had been waiting since the very first game to see Erebonia because there's been so much build-up running to Erebonia. And it's like, bro, to finally be able to see it and see the characters that are here. And from jump, I was like, yo, Reen is my dude. It's the same thing I had with Lloyd and Estelle, where I was like, yo, from jump, I was like, I love these characters. It's so hard not to love them. And same thing with Kevin, honestly. If we're counting, Kevin is considered a main protagonist as well, because he's also one of my favorite characters. So it's like, every time you meet one of these characters from Jump, you're like, yo, these characters are special. They're awesome. And it's like, dude, with Reen and just figuring out like Class 7 and how they work and how they came together and how the bonds they forged, because at the beginning, just like with everyone else, they weren't together. Like they were all had their own things that they were pursuing, but they were brought together as a class for a reason. To figure out that Olivier was the one behind this and whatnot, and and just to see all of the little missions that they went on together as a class at the field trips they went on together. It's just that first game was it brought me back to FC. It brought me back to how I felt while playing the first game of like meeting this entirely new cast, things are going on, and as Cold Steel 1 progresses and you figure out that this is taking place at the exact same time. Well, when the game starts off with what happened in Gorelia Fortress, so like you're like, yo, this is taking place at the exact same time as Zero and Azure. So it's like, sweet Aunt Jemima, this is about to go down. This is about to go down. So it's like, you start off the game with that, and when I start off the game with that, I thought we were gonna get an Azure. Oh my god, I never talked about this in Azure. I gotta go back to Azure for a second. In Azure at the end of the game, the plot twist with that Kia turn back time because the special support section got wiped out made me lose my mind, bro. I couldn't believe that twist, dog. I was mad shook because I was like, yo, that's genius. That's why the beginning of Zero and the end of Zero were different. I was like, I was so baffled, bro. I was like, flagging. But anyways, back to Cold Steel 1. So I thought we were gonna get a similar situation with Cold Steel 1. And so the entire game I was like, bro, what's gonna happen here? Like, are things gonna be different here at the end and whatnot? But the game continued its course, and you got close to the characters, and I got really, really close to a lot of the characters in Class 7. Excuse me, especially as the game progressed and as you went on more of these missions together. But Chapter 4 was really what had me extremely invested in like Swimmer, because whenever you first get introduced to Reen's ogre power, and because I think the chapter started off with Elise, and you're like, oh snap, like, yo, the sister that he's always been talking about, and then you see the ogre power for the first time, and that was my first like yo moment in the game, because I had a couple moments where I really loved early in the game, like with the whole Alyssa and Reen moment in the Nord Highlands. That was a fantastic moment. And a couple moments like that, right, where I was like, okay, I'm seeing the potential and the greatness here. But Chapter 4 was really where I was like, yo, because then after that, you get the greatness going down. That's whenever Crow really starts getting into it as well. My boy Crow. And so that's whenever you really start seeing like all the things coming together, and the storylines and whatnot. And I was like, okay, like I'm invested now, especially with the old schoolhouse. The old schoolhouse in the first game was the most interesting thing for me. And so you get to the final chapter in Cold Steel 1, and I thought the game ended when you finish the old schoolhouse section, because I was like, okay, the final chapter is going to end in the old schoolhouse like it did, because that feels like what this entire game has been building towards. It's the mystery in the old schoolhouse. What is the mystery there, and why is it that we've been going about it this entire time? So whenever you go into that final dungeon in the old schoolhouse, especially with the way that it was structured, I was like, there's no way that this is not the final part of this game. There's no way that this is not the final part. I was sold that it was the final dungeon. So you go into the old schoolhouse, and I was like, man, I can't wait to find all these answers and whatnot. So then you get into that final fight, and I'm just losing my mind, because you're like in the Keyblade graveyard, you're fighting against this massive thing, and it's like, yo, what in the flying flatters is going on? And so you finish that, and that's not the end of the game. It's not the end of the game. You continue on forward, and this entire section really made me realize how much I loved Class 7, because like the stuff with like building up towards the concert that they put on, the stuff building towards everything that they did in that final part of the old schoolhouse, and then the dancing scenes outside and the bonfire that they had. I was like, man, these characters are awesome, bro. Like, I went through this entire journey, and it reminded me so much of FC when I finished FC, of like, man, I love these characters. And same thing with Zero, and I was like, all of them have like that moment towards the end where you're like, man, I love these characters, especially for the introductory games in the franchises. So like, at the end of Cold Steel 1, I was like, yeah, this is awesome, but this is the end. There's no way. Like, we're ending it here. And then we got to a moment to where we started it again. And you have a free day in school, or you're back in school. And I was like, I thought the game ended. So you're in school again, going out, you're doing your thing, And then you get the moment, bro. And from here until the end of the game was just madness, dog. You get to a moment at the end of Cold Steel 1 where they're all gathered around and they're listening to the speech being delivered by Osborn and Heimdallr. And it's like, Flagnards, what is going on? I remember there was an assassination attempt that took place in the Crossbell games. So it's like, Flagnards, hold on, Chief. Crow was acting already suspicious. So it's like, don't even tell me. Don't even tell me. Because I was mad invested in the whole C plot line, who C was, and S and B, and that entire thing. And so you get to that part, and you get like 3 massive revelations back to back to back. Osborn is delivering the speech. And then, right in the middle of this, you have Misty, who you listen to at the end of every single free day. Who you're like, yo, this character is mad interesting. But you just can't put your finger on it. And it's like, she starts doing her thing, she starts reporting, and then there comes a point in time. I had chills go through every single cell in my body when Misty revealed herself as Vita and talked directly to the player. It was like that Metal Gear Solid moment of like, oh my god. Like you just have chills. And I was absolutely losing my mind. I was like, are you kidding me? Misty, bro? The second Anguis in Ouroboros. And then she's talking to the player. Her magic is on such another level that she can display it on the screen as if you're in an MLG tournament. And it's like, Flagnards. So you're sitting here watching this, and you get to see Crow. Crow is revealed to be C. And this one hit really, really hard for me. Because throughout the entire game, I built a relationship with so many of the characters, specifically with Elisa, Laura, and with Crow, and Toa, and you know, a lot of the class members, but like specifically, some of those I did a lot of those bonding events with. And Crow was a character I did so many bonding events with. So when I found out that he was C, it hurt, bro. I was like, no way. Crow, but you had your suspicions, but then it was true. So when he pulled the trigger and Osborn got hit, I was like, this is what happened back in Crossbell. Stuff starts popping off. The Thor's Academy starts getting invaded. And then that's when it happens. Listen, man. There's certain things in other stories that get me mad hyped. Bankai. Gear Second. Whatever the case may be. In this series, I'll never forget the first time I saw it, bro. Things were just hitting the fan. I had no idea what was happening. And they were like, yo, remember the words that were said back to you in the old schoolhouse. Because I remember seeing those words in the air. And my man says the legendary line, heed my call, Valimar. And when the Gundam comes in, from then on, I was a tard again. From then on, I was like, I was losing my mind, bro, because I grew up with Gundam. I grew up with Gundam, man. So to see a series combine and put that in, that entire mech thing within this franchise was already been phenomenal. And you end the game off with Crow and with Reen, they're fighting it off. I was losing it. I was losing it. And then you lose. And you get sent flying through the air to be continued. I bought Cold Steel 2 so fast. So fast. I started playing it immediately. That night, Cold Steel 2, right? And so, I'm hopping right into Cold Steel 2. Cold Steel 2, bro. Cold Steel 2 has some of my biggest peaks in the game. Like, the peaks in Cold Steel 2 are up there with, like, Cold Steel 3, Azure, and SC. Of, like, the peaks are peaks, right? They are out of this world. From the very beginning of the game. You know, you start off the game with Reen and Valimar all the way out in the mountains. You find out it's in Ymir, which is where Reen is from. So you finally get to meet Reen's family firsthand. And then stuff starts popping off. And they come and they abduct Alphine and Elise, and like, oh, Flagnards. So Reen not only has to go back and find everyone else, but now if people are getting abducted too. So now Reen is going off on this journey, and that entire prologue was madness. You're going and you're out with Toval, and like all these characters that were being introduced here in the beginning of in the first game. Now you're actually getting to play as them now more often than not. And then like just going out and finding them once again, slowly but surely, because everyone, of course, because of what's taking place, they're all hidden at this point in time, so you have to go out and find them. And it was like a return to Sabaody thing, where you're getting to see everybody a little, like a little bit of a time skip afterwards. It just calls for such an awesome experience, bro, of just finding everyone again. It really made me once again realize how much I love the members of Class 7. And you do that through each individual area, and like, man, dude, but Reen then has a similar situation as Estelle, where he's stuck on that ship alone, and he has some phenomenal moments up there on that ship. It gets so hype, like, and there's even moments where like him and Crow once again in a similar situation of like Estelle and Lewe, and it was just so goat, bro. Like that entire section was absolutely phenomenal. And then after that you have the open world section. Just spent quite a bit of time on, because I went to every single one of the shrines. I did almost every single quest. Like I did everything in the open world section. But then after that is where this game really peaked for me, bro. Where I was like, yo, this is some of the highest peaks in the series for me. I was losing my absolute bananas during the final chapter of Cold Steel 2 and beyond, right? Because during the final chapter, it's like everything's culminating here, man. You know, you have Class 7 finally back in Heimdallr, and the Valflame Palace is turned into this massive, like, Zelda dungeon, right? And it's absolute madness. And you get to see all these characters and all these top tiers that you saw earlier on in the story, and they're like Flagnards. Like, they fell in Marineford, but like there was so many clashes of insanity. You know, you're fighting Duvali and all these members of Ouroboros, but there was one in particular that stuck with me because I was so hyped. I was losing my mind. I was throwing Santa hats everywhere, bro. I took my shirt off. I was like, oh, this is godly. McBurn, man. McBurn versus Victor SRC. That junk was so flipping hype, dude. I was losing my bananas. I was like, yo, this is court. And shout out to Cold Steel 2's soundtrack, by the way. Cold Steel 2's soundtrack is S tier. S tier, dude. Greatness. So, like, you have all that stuff going down, and it's just clashes and clashes between the top tiers. Like, you are gonna make your way to that final section at all means necessary. So, like, things are going down, everything's finally starting coming into, everything's culminating, and it's going mad. And so you get to that final part, and right in front of you, the Azure Knight got Crow, finally, face to face, man. It's time to go down Class 7 versus Crow. But then Vita's there as well, man. And now I love that boss battle so much. You're going out and you're fighting both Vita and Crow, and after that, Blue Destination hit, and oh my god, bro, I have chills just thinking about it. Crow versus Reed, finally, because he has spent the entire game telling you need to get stronger, you need to get stronger, you need to get stronger. And now, with all the Zemurian aura that you had been building up and getting, which is exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the immersion. Just like in the same way that as Estelle, you finally found everyone, the pieces you need in order to go out and successfully complete this journey. As Lloyd, finding the answers on your own and then delivering those answers as your main character made the immersion much more impactful. And then as Reen, you know, you spent this entire time building up Valimar. You spent all of these moments fighting everyone else, and those moments like S and V, man, they were hitting hard, right? But you spent the entire time building a Valimar for this fight, and now it's finally time to go at it 1v1 as Blue Destination hits. God, that fight is one of my favorites in the entire series, no question. It was so flipping amazing, dude. And then you have that moment where then, because of Cedric and the sacrifice that Duke Cayenne made, the Vermilion Knight is once again one and up, and the Testarossa, and then you have to do this like multi-phase boss battle against that thing, which was so much fun. But it comes down to Crow and Reen versus versus the Testarossa, and they're like, holy Flagnards, and it's just so godly. But then after that, man, is when stuff, like my emotions just started flying all over the place, bro, because that's whenever Crow, my boy, man, Move forward relentlessly. Move forward, never look back. Crow, man, I was bawling like a baby, dog. From my boy Crow. That's my boy. And I need answers, man. I need answers, like. But we'll talk about that in a little bit, bro. Like, but with Crow, man, that young hit just hits so hard, dog. And just seeing Class 7's reactions to him and whatnot, it hurt so bad, bro. And then what followed afterwards, because it was relentlessly hitting my mind. Because after Crow dies, then that's when Osborn reveals himself as to actually being alive this whole time. And then I immediately remembered the end of Azure, where you find out that Osborn successfully like bamboozled everyone. And you're like, oh snap, that's right, he does. So it's like Osborn shows up, and then you find out that Rufus is an Iron Blood too. That's been building up this entire time. So like, then you see everyone here. Stuff is just ankle breaker after ankle breaker after ankle breaker. But the biggest ankle breaker was when I found out that Osborn was Reen's dad. Because then you're like, flag nards, everything makes sense now. Osborn is Reen's father. He left him with the family that he's with right now. And it's like, yo, Osborn, because I remember back in Azure when Lloyd and Osborn met, and the special sports section met Osborn. They're great judges of character. And they found something both very strange, but there was also something great about Osborn. Where it was like, they couldn't figure him out, but they knew that he wasn't all like this all-encompassing villain like everyone else made him out to be. Like there was something there to him. And it always stuck with me after that conversation at the end of the trade conference, right? Or in mid-trade conference with Osborn and the special sports section. So it's like, once you get to see that moment, it's like, oh, something of course had to happen with Osborn. And the fact that it ends there, I thought the game ended there. Because the game ends there, the credits roll, you have I Remember You, and you have Reen and the coin, that amazing section. But then, y'all remember how I said earlier that the most hype moment for me was the prison break in Azure. If it's not that, then it was probably this, bro. Dude, oh my god. Bruh. You end that chapter, which I thought was the finale of the game. And then Jung says, what was it, like, divulsement, crossbell. I ran around the house like 7 times. I spanned my group chat harder than I've ever spanned it before. I threw Santa hats, clothes off. I was sweating out. That was way too goat. Way too goat. I pressed X when I got back in the room. And I heard Lloyd's voice, and that's when it really ended. That's when it really ended. I lost my absolute mind. I lost my mind, bro. You hear Lloyd, you get to see what's happening in Crossbell, but then you actually get to see Lloyd and Rixia in CS2 graphics, in the Geofront. I have chills just thinking about it, bro. And then you get to play as Lloyd and Rixia in the Geofront. I spent 6 hours on that. I think it was. The entire time. I spent so much time just sitting there listening to the soundtracks, when Over the Barrier plays, when Inevitable Struggle plays, and the Geofront theme, and just playing as Lloyd, and this, I was just like, yo, this is peak fiction. This is peak fiction, zenith of the medium. I was losing my mind in our chat, man. It was just so gold. I mean, sandhats were flying. I think that was the most hyped I've been while playing this series. I think so, honestly. Like, that scene, the scene I talked about earlier in Azure with the prison break, the scene in SC whenever Joshua shows up with Estelle, and then I think I can say one from later on too in CS3, but like this was definitely one of those like peak hype moments where I was like, this right here is it's on another level. It's on another level, dude. And I just spent that entire time just in that area playing as Lloyd and Rixia, and as the memories, even though I had just, it's not like I had been with the series for so long. I can't even imagine people who were playing the games for years. I had only been playing the game for the last like 6 months, and to see that moment, how much it hit me. It hit me as hard as whenever I went back to Midgar in FF7. And I've been with that game franchise since I was like 5 years old. So it's like, yo, that's how you knew that I was connected to these characters and invested in these characters. And going throughout that entire section, seeing the limit breaks, rising sun, and like, God, that was so much fun, bro. And then you get to the end of that section, and then you have Reen show up as being that individual they were talking about. And you're like, yo, why is Reen here? And then Reen is with Altina, bro. And you're like, what? You're like, flat nards. So it's like, it's Reen, it's Altina versus Rixia and Lloyd, and you're playing as Lloyd, and it's like the clash of two main characters, and I was like, oh, this is fake fiction. So you finish the section, and you're like, what in the flying flatness is going on? And then after that, you get into the actual final part of the game, man. And dude, like, God, that part was so phenomenal. But then you get to the actual end of CS2 and like how they this time they actually do go to the old schoolhouse to finish it off. And I love that final section a lot because I bought the Phantasmal Mirrors for 3 characters. I bought the Phantasmal Mirror for Crow. And if you don't know what that is, just in case you didn't do it, the Phantasmal Mirrors are like, you can put them on equip them on any character. They just have to be either male or female, as long as like it matches the gender. You can put them on any character. But and then they can transform into whatever characters in the Phantasmal Mirror. So I bought Crow, Lloyd, and Vita. So I spent the entire final dungeon that night. I stayed up super late that night, playing as Class 7, and then switching out and playing as Reen, Crow, Lloyd, and Vita. So I spent that entire time doing all of that, and I was like, yo, this is the most awesome final dungeon ever, dude. So you finish it off, you get those emotional moments of like Milliam and everyone there, and it's like, yo, it's really over. And of course you get the final goodbye between all of Class 7 and whatnot, and Cold Steel 2 comes to an end, bro, and it was so phenomenal. Like, Cold Steel 2 was also in my S tier of Trails games. It was so amazing. Like, I remember after finishing that one, I was like, bro, how in the world do we continue from this? Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to talk about The Legend of Heroes, Trails of Cold Steel 3. Like I said before, I didn't think any game could surpass SC. And then, I didn't think any game could surpass Azure. But here we are. I still know my favorite game in the franchise is, because at this point, I don't even need to put thought into it. I'll wait until after I finish the next one. Just comes out next week. But one thing I can say for certain is that from an emotional standpoint, I don't think any game in this franchise has hit me as hard as this one did, bro. Cold Steel 3, bro. Just like with the other games in the franchise, from the moment that I booted it up, I knew it was going to be special. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. I went into all these games blind, but this one especially, I was like, man, what's going to happen here? So when I started it off and I saw Reen as a professor, I was already sold, because I was like, yo, Reen is going to be a Yoshida Shoyo? He's going to train his own class? That concept alone sold me on how great Cold Steel 3 was about to be. And I just knew that it was going to be something out of this world and spectacular. Because I was like, man, when the game started, you see Tita and Agate. And I'm like, oh Lord, here we go. And I remember just losing my absolute mind. I was like, there's no way they're here. And then Randy is a fellow teacher of yours. And it's like all these characters that you know from the entire story are now showing up here in a different role. Aurelia's your principal. Oh, baby Aurelia, man. Yo, you know what? I haven't talked about her before this, which is it's a shame I didn't. But yo, Sarah and Aurelia, man. Yo, straight up, man. Straight up, dude. Oh, that's baby girls right there, man. Woo! Love Sarah. She's a goat, dude. Sarah's a boss. That's my teacher. And Aurelia's my principal. Oh, Aurelia's a boss, dude. She's a goat. But, like, man, I don't even know where to begin with Cold Steel 3, bro. I finished the game, I think it was around 5 days ago. And I'm still trying to process the ending of the game. It just left me so bamboozled and shocked. It gave me the one feeling that I crave at least one point in time in my stories. And that is to give me a moment so insane that it leaves my mind blank for several days after it ends. And that's what the end of this game was, man. But before we get into the end of the game, I gotta talk about some of the few other things, because this game, from beginning to end, because one thing about a lot of these games, because of the way that they're structured, is that a lot of the craziness and a lot of the insanity happens later on in the games, right? And that's for every single Trails game. Every Trails game towards the end, it's absolutely bonkers. But I find that a lot of my favorites have things that take place earlier on that are equally as memorable. That happened with SC, happened with Azure, and whatnot. So, like, Cold Steel 3, from Chapter 1. Chapter 1, ladies and gentlemen, takes place, a certain section takes place in Hamel. Hamel! I remember messaging my group chat, losing my mind, like, are we really going to Hamel? I always knew it was in Erebonia, but I thought we were going to go here, it was like Estelle and Joshua, in like some future installment. I'm coming here as Reen and his class with Juna, Kurt, Altina. I'm coming here with them. By the way, speaking of Juna, Kurt, and Altina, I love the new Class 7 so much, bro. Like, I absolutely, the old Class 7, man, I flipping love those characters. But the new Class 7, bro, was just, the fact that you were their teacher, it makes it feel different, you know? So great. And then with Ash and with Muse, just that entire class is so fantastic and wonderful, man. Especially, like, as the game goes on, you just become so attached to the characters. Because I remember at the beginning, every time that a new member of Class 7 would show up, or I'm sorry, that an old member of Class 7 would show up, I'm like, oh yeah, but I'm definitely putting them in the party. By the end of the game, I was playing all that with a new Class 7. I was like, nah, this is my squad. I love y'all. I love the old Class 7, but aside from like the boss battles that I wanted to, play as members of the old Class 7, I was like, nah, I'm playing as a new Class 7 for most of this dungeon, right? But earlier on in the game, whenever you go to that section in Hamel, and you see members like, when Shirley and Duvali first like invade your camp, I was like, holy Flagnards, we're already doing this early? And it was so awesome because Shirley, you get to see her for the first time in the game if you do the cat side quest. And the cat side quest is very similar to the one that you had whenever you first ran into Shirley. Not really first, but whenever you ran into Shirley in the Crossbell games. And I was like, yo, that's an awesome... And this game did that a lot. Cold Steel 3 had so many moments that were callbacks to the earlier games. And it was so great because Cold Steel 3 felt like something that was paying homage to so many other things, while also being its own fantastic thing in of its own, right? So, like, but yeah, that section in Hamel, man, really, really, really got to me. I remember whenever the soundtrack started playing and you're sitting there in Hamel and you have like Silver Will with the instrumental playing in the background, and you think back to Leo and how amazing of a character he was, and the entire story in SC, and you're like, man, what a journey we've been on in these last games. And so you get to here and you get to see Reen and some moments building up with like Ash and whatnot. But what was so wonderful and beautiful about this moment that brought a tear to my eye was whenever you walk up the steps after you see the remains of everywhere in the wood all over the place. Everything in the place has been burned, has been destroyed. But then you go up the stairs, You go into the grave of my man, Lewe, bro. With the blade still there that Estelle and Joshua left. But sitting there paying their respects were Shirley and Duvali, man, and the individuals who just attacked your camp. Like, the very same individuals that you've been wanting to fight. Ouroboros, man. And what I love so much about Ouroboros and them as an organization is that everything that they do is so calculated and it's so fascinating. And I love villainous organizations, but they all respect each other, bro. At least most of them do. And they all have their very own reasons for doing this. And the more we figure out about them, the more interesting and more lovable they become. And so whenever you're there, and they pretty much tell like Reen and the squad, like, go ahead, pay your respects to him. We'll take our fight elsewhere. We ain't gonna disturb his grave. He was too good of a man for that. And just I get chills just talking about it. Cause it's like, yo, you have these two parties who want to go at it, but not here. We ain't disrespecting the GOAT like that, man. And it was so amazing on how then you have that scene with them paying their respects, with the theme playing in the background. It just brought a tear to my eye. And then another moment that also brought a tear to my eye was at the end of the chapter, whenever you have all of the class, all the classes come in and pay their respects. And I was like, yo, this is amazing, dude. And we're just spending quite a bit of time there, just absorbing it all in. And then you get into that boss fight. That's the first time that you get the legendary Heed My Call Volleyball again. I was like, yeah, let's go. Because I love it. The Heed My Call Volleyball never fails to get me hyped, especially when their Volleyball is like acknowledged. I was like, it's goated. It's goated. And then, of course, that's whenever you run into the Jaeger King Rutger, man. Such a fascinating character, especially after learning so much about him with the whole thing in Azure with how the Randy's pops was so connected to the Jaeger King, and of course Fee and her connection to him. So to see him there and to see that he was the old man that you saw earlier that was pwning everything, and he shows up in his own like divine night type of thing, and it's like, holy flag nerds. It's like, yo, stuff is popping off. Ouroboros, of course, is trying to get their Phantasmal Blaze plan back. You have stuff moving in the background with Osborne, and he's trying to move things. So like things were already well into like in the motions really early on. And then chapter 2 came along, man, and this is like, I remember coming home every single day, so happy to be back home in my video game home of Crossbell, bro. Because then chapter 2 hits, and chapter 2 is whenever now the students are starting to warm up to Reen. And now, especially since we're going back to Crossbell, I was so interested in seeing how everyone would react to it, how we would see like certain interactions, would we hear anything about the legendary special support section, and like I wanted Randy to meet up with his squad so bad, bro, like so bad. So then we go into chapter 2, we go to Crossbell, and finally seeing it in these amazing graphics. And then Juna, with her connection to Crossbell, she's of course been feeling extremely strange since her journey, and God, man, her moments with Altina and with Kurt and with Reen throughout this entire section were so beautiful. Some of my favorite moments in the game. So good. But Reen coming back here, especially after last time, he was one of the reasons why this place got annexed in the first place. But the thing is, the people don't resent him. And you find out the truth that Juna's family was saved by Reen in that last game. At the end of the game, whenever that whole thing was going down, Reen saved Juna's family there. And she's been trying to thank him this entire time. And so you're going around and you're seeing Juna, hyping up the special support section. And I love it because Juna's as big of a tar in the special support section as I am. So like Juna's hyping up Lloyd in the special support section. It just got me equally as hyped. There was this one part that had me jumping around in my room, even though it was so simple. But like, they were talking about Lloyd as a wanted fugitive that everyone wanted, because listen, they needed to keep that man in a barrier because they know that if he was here, their plans would have been thwarted. And I was like, my God, Lloyd Bannings. And I was like, bro, just when I thought that I couldn't love Lloyd more than I do, this game comes around and speaks of him as a member of, as a person of legend. And what's so cool about these games, and I forgot to talk about this in chapter 1. But in chapter 1, when Agate shows up, which was a really cool scene where you get to actually play as him and whatnot, but he talks about Estelle and Joshua. And they seem like these legendary characters and figures. And then you speak of Lloyd as a character of legend as well. And it's like yo, these characters really live up to the name, the Legend of Heroes, and it's so cool. So like hearing Lloyd being talked about, him being talked about as a wanted fugitive, the reason why they're keeping him out is because they know what the special support section would do to this plan. I was like, yo, of course they would, bro. They would go up in Lake Swellboard, they'd find out the truth, they would pwn y'all. Like Rufus don't want none of Lloyd. Lloyd was smacked at him. I was like, all right, dude, goated. Every time they hyped up the SSS, I was always mad hyped. And the callbacks, and I love that Crossbell chapter so much. And being able to explore Crossbell with the graphics for Cold Steel 3 was so much fun. And exploring the Tower of Stargaze was madness, you know, hearing that soundtrack and whatnot. And then seeing the differences between how Cold Steel 3, or Cold Steel 3's Crossbell was to the other Crossbells, you know, of course, after the annex of it and whatnot. So like it was just so great being able to go back to that place and then seeing the characters that were involved there, you know, whenever you have to fight McBurn and Campy on top of the Orcus Tower, and you're like, wow, being back at the Orcus Tower after so long. And it's just, once again, I'm going back to the thing earlier about paying homage to the earlier games, but also being a thing in and of itself. And it was just so great going through that entire section, and it was so much fun, dude, especially whenever Reen, because he had to hold back his ogre power. Oh, and there was a moment where Reen first met Rose. We're like, who in the flying flatters is this? But it was because we didn't know of what took place earlier on in the thing, because they kept it from us. But what happened in Northumbria was that Reen lost control of his ogre powers. And it's like, holy flaggers. And I just love how that was building up to what happened at the end of the game. But like about him losing control, and we saw how he was always keeping the spirit unification in. You know, he was always keeping the ogre powers in. He always had control of it. And so I was like, how in the world would Reen, of all people, lose control? So then you get to meet Rose and whatnot, but you don't know who she is yet, right? So, but then we'll leave that for later on. And then the entire second chapter, and then they go out, they do the thing, and now Class 7 is closer than they've ever been. And it calls for some really, really fun moments, and, you know, fighting McBurn again was so much fun, and Campy as well. And I always love how in those sections you get to play certain boss battles, as, for example, you played one with, like, Reen and Sharon, and Sharon's backstory was insane, bro. That junk hit. I was like, man, I felt so sorry for her. And the fact that she entrusted Reen with that information. And then in the other one with Class 7 against Campy, I was like, oh, that's awesome. You know, with like Juna and Kurt, Altina and whatnot. So like, then you go into the next section, at the end of the Crossbell saga, and this is without question one of my favorite scenes in the entire series so far, because you have all these beautiful moments between Randy and Lloyd, with like thanking him for like protecting his place because he wasn't able to. Juna and Kurt finally like warming up to Reen, and they had some beautiful moments themselves, and with Altina and Juna, especially when Juna was feeling down, Altina, you know, bring her back up like, yo, I know I don't know how you're feeling, I don't have many emotions, but I'm here for you. And that stuff was really, really hitting, man. Like I was tearing up a lot for that stuff. But the scene that really hit me the hardest in the entire section was the scene at the end of the chapter, when after building it up for so long, you hadn't seen his face, you didn't know where he was, all you heard was that they were stuck in a barrier, and then Toa looks out the window, and there you see, in some phenomenal anime-looking graphics, Kia, Adios, and Lloyd, just like at the end of Azure, when they're up against the wall and they're escaping together, and you get a close-up of a fist in the same way that Randy and Lloyd put out their fists earlier. I'm joking, I'm just thinking about it, bro. You get a close-up, man. And it was so beautiful because of what took place in Cold Steel 2. They fought each other, but there was that sign of respect whenever Lloyd was looking at Reen, and he was like, you're like me, brother. We're just trying to do the best for this world. And it's so cold. But he goes up to him, he puts out the fist. And you have that amazing shot of Lloyd putting out the fist. And then Reen is like, I got you, bro. I got you while you're gone. And it was that sign of respect between the two characters. That junk hit home so hard. One of my favorite scenes in the entire game, without question. Without question. And the crazy thing about this game is that those two chapters were already 10s. And then we hit chapter 3. And chapter 3, bro. When you go back to the beginning of the game, and now it's Arianrod's turn. And it's like Flagnard's. Now we gotta fight Arianrod. And so, once again, it's time for me to go up against her. And now she's like a boss battle of legend now, right? So, now I'm super excited because at the beginning of the chapter, you get to see her and McBurn, and they have an amazing conversation. And me as a meathead, I'm like, yo. And then they start like going back and forth between like Flagnard's like who would win in a fight between the two of us. And Mike Burns like, hey man, I don't feel like wasting none of that energy right now. It was so good because of the sign of respect between the two. But the chapter was so great because you get to find out more about, you know, Ord is such a beautiful place in town, but you find out a lot about Ash and Muse in this part. And you get to find out a lot about the two, actually. So, like, with Ash and his hometown of Raquel and his whole story with his mother, that was fantastic. And then the Raquel night sequence with Reen, with Claire, with Sarah, and with Flagnard's, man. Oh, and with Angelica. So it was those four. That entire night sequence, that was peak, dude. That was like Wall Market in Final Fantasy VII. So that was so much fun. That entire portion, of course, getting to find out more about Muse, who she actually is and whatnot. Yo, that was crazy. Getting to fight Princess Aurelia, or Princess, she is a princess to me. But getting to fight Principal Aurelia back in at the school, and improving yourself, and then actually being able to fight with her in the final dungeon. That was gore. In chapter 3, that was so much fun. I was so shocked when I got to play as Aurelia, having a top tier in your thing. So that was super dope. It made that dungeon so much fun. Fighting through that entire place to go fight Duvali and Arianrod and them. But before we get into that, there was a certain nighttime sequence where Reen is talking to Sarah and then talking to Claire, and you get to find out like Claire's story with Irving, Claire's backstory. You get to find out more with Sarah and whatnot, and of course her connection with the Jaegers. And I'm glad that we got that conversation then, because then the scene with Sarah and the Jaegers later on within that dungeon hits so hard, bro. When she's crying with all her might, telling him like, yo, why are y'all doing y'all so stupid? And man, all that stuff was hitting so hard. And then you get up to the rooftop in that final dungeon in chapter 3, and it's Arianrod once again, mask off. And when Unfathomed Force started playing, every cell in my body, every hair was standing. I was throwing Santa hats. I called my oh, actually no, before we get into that, there was a scene where they were down on the bottom below whenever they went to go rescue the Flagnards. Who was under that thing? I think it was Milliam. Yeah, I think it was Milliam. So they went to go rescue Milliam, and there with Milliam were Duvali, Arianrod, and all of them, right? But Reen had to 1v1 Arianrod. So he immediately took out his ogre power. He smashed the thing that Emma and Celine made for him. It was like, yo, or he didn't smash it, but he like gave it to him. He was like, yo, I don't need this right now. I gotta go all out. I gotta test myself. And I was just losing my mind because I was like, yo, 1v1, Reen ogre power, Arianrod. I was like, let's go. I mean, I was losing my mind, and I was throwing sad ads. Arianrod was like, yo, let's get this. I was so hyped, dude. It's like, yo, Reen, white hair, swagged out up against Arianrod. And then also right before that, in the crossbow section, we got to meet Azure Siegfried for the first time. And I was like, holy flaggers, who was this? And why did he like crow? And that's whenever you get introduced to the gnomes and like that floating spear. And I was like, what is this, Halo? And I was just like, bro, what is going on, dude? But back to chapter 3, after that Arianrod section, I was like, yo, nothing's gonna beat this. But when you get to the final part of the section, and it's Aurelia and Arianrod talking, the hype levels are astronomical. and Unfathomed Force plays, and then it's you and Aurelia against Ari and Rod. Ah, that boss battle was so godly. And then Ari and Rod, after that entire thing happens, to find out that she actually is the Leanne Sandlot from all the way back then. And then she has her own Divine Knight as well. And I was like, what the fuck? I mean, we knew that she had a Divine Knight because of the Black Records and because of what was stated at the end of Cold Steel 2. But it's like to actually see her with this thing and then to see that Duvali and them didn't know about it. And they started questioning, you know, with everything and whatnot. And then you get to see how true their loyalty actually is. But then how they all started wavering as well. And I really love that part of the game. With those characters, because we know exactly how loyal they are, but the fact that they didn't know about it and how they wavered after that was really human, really realistic of what a character would, or what a person would be like in that type of scenario. So I really love that, man. And so Arya and Rod leaves, and now you're left with even more questions, but the hype was there, but it was so awesome, so much fun. And then at the end of the chapter, you get to find out who Rose is. You get to see her with Ari and Rod and whatnot, and you get to see their conversation with Leanne. They talk about Dragos and whatnot. I was like, this is gold. So then we're leading into the final stretch here. We go back to Heimdallr, and by this point, I was already so invested in the stories of Class 7, bro. Oh, and by the way, there was also a portion, I think this was in Chapter 3. I don't remember if it was Chapter 3 or Chapter 4, but where you have conversations with the members of Class 7, and specifically with Muse and with Ash. And there was a beautiful conversation with Ash and Reen. That Reen was already one of my favorite characters in the story, but I think that conversation put him up there, like, to be almost #1 for me. It was so awesome and so beautiful because you got to see his maturity as an individual and how much he's grown as a person since the first game in that moment, in that scenario. And it was so awesome, dude. God, man, I have the picture of it, bro. I wanna... let me see. Oh, I forgot about this in Chapter 2 for Crossbell. When Tio joined your party, I lost my mind. I was like, yo, Tio skate. So having Tio in Ultra Graphics was so much fun. That was goated. Tio greatness. But man, I can't find it, bro. It was the scene with... Here it is. Reen, where he was like, yo, I don't know your background, but I can tell that you were loved by the person who raised you. You can ask me your presence in class. He's right here. You asked me how your presence in the class benefits me, but that's not what matters. As long as you find meaning in what we're doing, you have a place in Class 7. And I was like, bro, Reen, dude. My boy. So then, like, Chapter 4 starts going down, and things are... God, man, Chapter 4 was crazy. Like, there was so many different... things, like everything was like culminating, things were just going wild, and like you're finally getting certain answers, you answer certain questions, you're finally getting close to Osborne. You have that one Osborne and Reen moment. Stuff is finally like you're finally like, yo, whoa, my God, we're almost at the end, and everything's popping off, and then you see all the characters from earlier on in the game show up, and you get to that one part where after you do the bonding events with the tickets, which they happen in quite a bit in all the other games, and they're always really special moments and situations. There's this one part where in the middle of that, Lecter asks you to go out and go down in the bottom, and like in the one part where you were originally trying to find the Jaegers or the Calvert agents. So you go down there with Lecter. Lecter joins your party, dude. You go down there with Lecter and everyone else. It is the biggest party, dude. It was so crazy, and just switching back and forth between all these legends, like having Olivier and Tio. I think the ones that I had the most in the party were Reen, Agate, Tio, Olivier, Sarah, of course. Like I just constantly kept switching. But the main squad that I always had for like the boss battles were, I think it was Tio, Reen, Lecter, and either Olivia or Agate. Like I would, and Sarah. Like I would always like switch between those for the boss battles. But I would always like use everyone. Like having Tita and Olivier and Tita and Agate in the squad together again after so long was so awesome, dude. It was so much fun. But the entire chapter 4 section, especially towards the end, at like the garden, and while the party's happening, you're talking to everyone, and you're like, yo, this real deal feels like it's the end, especially after that dungeon with Class 7 where you go out and fight the Zoro Erebos, and you figure out who Rose is, with the Grand Elder, to Emma and whatnot, and everything's really starting to pop off now. We're really starting to get into the meat of what has actually been taking place for all these years, and get all those revelations to what took place in the past of the Trail's history and whatnot. All these answers, like, holy flagness, bro! Like, am I really listening to this? God, man, that soundtrack is so good. I forgot the name of the soundtrack, but the soundtrack, whenever they go out on all those info dumps, is so goated. But so they go out and talk about that, and then at the end of chapter 4, during the garden part, where you have that conversation with Osborne, and then with the Emperor, and then that's whenever Ash goes in, and the entire build up to the game so far with Ash and the thing with his eye, now comes to full fruition, and they set him up completely, and it was so genius in the way they did it. The reason why Ash followed him down there was so that he could find the Calvert agent, get his gun, and be able to come back. And before I go right into that, at the beginning of chapter 4, when Angelica and George had that moment, and Angelica got killed by George, that was one of the most shocking scenes in the entire series for me. First of all, I didn't expect George to be somebody to betray the squad and to be a part of the whole Gnomes and the workshop squad. But to see what he did to Angelica, and then with all the questions I had for Crow, to see him there as well. And then like he started talking more and more like Crow. I was like, bro, what in the flying? Who is this dude? So like things just started continuing from there, and then there was this one part in the Zoro Erebos dungeon where you get to fight as Crow and Blue Destination hits, and I was just like, yeah. It was so gory. It was so awesome. And then and then you get to that final section, and Ash loses it. The darkness takes over, and that's whenever the Emperor's like, yo, I'll take it. And the crazy thing is that they had that conversation earlier on in the chapter, the beginning of the chapter actually, between Osborne and Emperor. Like they always knew this was going to happen, and of course they did, because it was a setup. And with like Cedric and everything else that had taken place in the series, like it was all building up to this moment. And Ash takes him out. Now it's time for them to go out and declare war, and now it's time for their plans to start going in. And that's how we get into the final chapter. And I felt so bad for Ash, bro, and I felt so bad for Reen as the instructor here, because he's like, how much he loves these individuals, and how much he loves Ash and his class. And it's like, yo, what do I do now? And it was a state of loss. But I loved how whenever you started off the final chapter, which has a phenomenal name, and For Whom the Bell Tolls, you start off the chapter with Aurelia and Reen and Randy and them, and they're like, yo, we ain't just gonna sit idly by this. Like, Ash is our classmate. Ash is a member of our school. Not only are we gonna get our boy back, but we're gonna go ahead and take care of this business. Like, it was so beautiful, and it made, because at the beginning of the game, when you start off, like, it felt like everybody treated the school like trash. Like, they ain't like the main campus or whatever. Like, it's just the branch campus. To see how far everybody had come, to the fact where, like, they were all like a family now. And they went all out, and they went and rescued Ash, and then they went into that flipping palace to go down again and duke it out with all the top tiers left. And what was the name of that place? The Corella Imperial Villa. To go there and to have everything just going all out in that moment. It was just nuts, man. That final dungeon was so crazy, because you have everything going on outside. Like, it felt like it was a war going on out there. All these people that you had known for so long are going out doing their thing out there. And then you show up. It's time for you to start going up and, like, swimwear. And you're fighting all these monsters that you had fought beforehand. Now they're just regular enemies, right? Like, on some of the third stuff. And you're going out and you're doing these insane boss battles. Like, bro, Ari and Rod and McBurn, bro. Like, what in the Flagnards, dude? Ari and Rod and McBurn. And so, like, you do that. It's absolutely nuts. And then you go into the next part, which I think that was the part with Shirley and Sharon and Crow and them, and that part was crazy. I still can't believe that you fought Crow, bro, in that Zoro Erebos dungeon. That dungeon was so godly, like the Blue Destination hit and everything. But yeah, and then you fought that portion. Then you go into the Iron Bloods, which made so much sense for them to be the last ones that you would fight before you got to the final part there. And then after you fight the Iron Bloods, which was extremely emotional, I did not want to fight them. I did not want to fight them, especially after figuring out their backstories. Rufus reveals that he wasn't even the brother of Juice this whole time, and like you're getting to get the full picture here. And then once they get to the bottom, man, that's whenever this game just went bonkers. Bonkers. I'm a picture taker in these games. That entire final stretch, I forgot to take a picture. I forgot. The entire final stretch. Forgot to take a single picture except for the final screen. Dead serious. Dead serious. It was just so nuts. Because you get down there, you're taking on the beast that has been brought up. You know, you see Osborn there, you see Siegfried there. On top, you see Lugman, which is like the professor once again in this game that is the leader of the gnomes and what have you. And then you see on the bottom Cedric going out, and Cedric is such an interesting character for me because you know why he's doing all this. He doesn't want to be weak, and like that entire plot line has always fascinated me. So I'm fascinated where Cedric's story goes from here, honestly. But you see, so they're fighting this dragon, and once you defeat the dragon with Volumar, and I was so hyped fighting that boss fight because like it's so good in the two phases where the first phase is you as just humans, and then the second phase you're in the Divine Knights. And then while you're doing that, you just know this is the final battle of the game because there's like 1,000,000 something health. So you take it out and you're like, what in the world's gonna happen now? Am I gonna fight Cedric? Am I gonna take on Osborn? Like what's gonna happen? And so you cut out and you can see the Courageous coming in. And this part, I mean, bro, if I talk about shocking moments, my brain was on the floor. When the Courageous shows up and everything feels like it's filled with hope. And then they hit the button. And it gets destroyed. Olivier, Victor, and Toval on the Courageous. And it explodes. And Olivier's final words to Shara, man, that hits so hard, bro. Like, I love Olivier's character, man. And to see, like, when that happened, it really, really hurt. It really hurt, bro. And then you go back, and then Millium dies. They're all trying to go out and save Altina, bro. They're trying their hardest to save Altina. And Millium, and we saw how their story had been progressing from Cold Steel 2 and Cold Steel 3. And then Millium dies. That one really, really hit me, bro. I was bawling like a baby. And it hurt so bad, bro, right? Seeing Millium and the final words and Juices with all of his might yelling, Millium! I mean, it just hurts so bad, bro. It was like Flagnards. I'm just thinking about it, dude, you know. But when Millium dies, that's when we get the payoff to the whole lose control concept that's been there since the very first game in the Cold Steel series. And Reen loses complete control of the ogre. And he starts going off on some end of Evangelion stuff, goes berserk, and decimates the beast. And when he does that, it sends an entire shockwave through the entirety of Erebonia. A dark wave goes through everything, bro. And I'm sitting here, I'm just losing. I still can't process the fact that Olivier died. And then Millium dies. Reen starts going absolutely off. You fight the dragon, the same dragon you just fought, in Reen's second state, with him absolutely having lost control. You obliterate it, and now you're still swinging at the thing. Now for me, every time Reen had went into his ogre form, I had been losing my mind in hype. But this was the one time that I was like, bro, Reen, stop. I was like, I remember class 7, I was like, Reen, stop, bro. I was mad hype, but I was like, Reen, don't do this, bro. Like, this ain't you. This ain't you, baby. This ain't you. So I'm like, I have a mix of emotions. Millium just died, so I understand his rage, but at the same time, I'm like, Reen, don't lose yourself, bro. You have your class here. Like they're worried for you, dog. And I'm like, man, like, Flanders, I listen, man. Earlier on in the game, I didn't use Spirit Unification because I didn't want like the members of Class 7 to worry about me. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna use it. I don't want them to worry about me. So I was like, Flagnards. I only used it whenever I was like with the other characters. That's how much I cared about the relationship with these characters, right? So, yeah, man. And then you get to the ending, man. Give me a second. My camera's about to run out of battery, so I'm gonna run over here to this side. So yeah, man. Then you get to the ending, bro. And right after reading it and everything, it's like you just felt it. It had all been a part of Osborn's plan. It had all been a part of everything that had been taking place behind the scenes, the entire game. This is what they wanted. The Great Twilight was a success. And now the world's coming to an end. And now Osborn grabbing Reen. They reveal what had been done. The Divine Knights all come down. Arianrod comes down. Siegfried comes down. You're like, what in the flying Flagnards is going on? Everyone's coming down there with their Divine Knights. They're all stopping Reen. Osborn pulls out his obelisk, the Tormentor. I'm like, bruh. And then McBurn states that Osborn in that thing is the only thing that could ever overpower him. When I heard that, I had chills go up through my entire spine. And then Osborn ends the game mid-sentence with Reen. Boom, credits roll as he holds Reen in his hands. And my mind was just so boggled, bro. I just couldn't believe like I said, my mind was stuck in Olivier. So while the entire credits are rolling, my brain is just like, what? And I was like that the whole day. Like, what in the world just happened? And then, after the credits, you get that amazing final shot like every game does. This has been The Legend of Heroes, Trails in the Sky, Cold Steel 3. But then after that, you get a couple of lines of dialogue, and you get some pictures. And you see Volibar and Reen locked up in prison. Let's see this wretched fairy tale to the end. That shot has been stuck in my brain for the past 6 days. And that's how the game ends. Oh my god, bro. When I tell you that when Cold Steel 4 comes out, I'm diving right in, I'm diving right in, man. That was one of the most shocking endings I have ever experienced, bro. That cliffhanger was on the level of the first game, where I was just like, what? Like, everything that I know is just, it's getting decimated from my eyes. In a good way. And it's like, man, still I'm having trouble processing that entire thing, bro. But now that I've calmed down a bit, which is why I didn't record that video, or this video that day, because I wouldn't have been able to actually like think about it. But now that I've thought about it for the past almost week now, I thought about how genius Cold Steel 3's ending was, man. Like, the entire game had such an uplifting atmosphere, and the entire series has such an uplifting, like, no matter what happens, we can pull through this. So when Cold Steel 3 ends, and it's a loss, not only is it a loss, but it's a loss because of you. It is specifically a loss because Reen lost control. It's specifically a loss because him doing what any of us would have done after one of his classmates died, after one of his friends died. He's lost himself. He went berserk. And destroyed this monster so it would no longer hurt anyone. And because he did that, man, caused the entire world to shift into its next phase. And now, surrounded by a whole bunch of top tiers, he can't do anything but to be imprisoned, man. And all playing into Osborn's strings, bro. Guys, when I tell y'all that my hype for Cold Steel 4 is on like an astronomical level, it's on an astronomical level, bro. I need this game so bad. And we're only 1 week away, bro. Holy Flagnards. I can't wait, dude. Like, that's gonna be the day where I just go ham. Like, I'm going in for this game. Like, I went ham for all the other games, but I'm going ham for this game, bro. The fact that it's the end of the saga, something I've been invested in. these last 6 months, just playing non-stop every single day. And a catch-up journey of legend, man. It's something that I'm never ever gonna forget, bro. And I just can't wait to see how it all closes and finishes. Like to just think that Cold Steel 4, that Cold Steel 3, as insane as it was more similar in structure to FC, to Zero, and to Cold Steel 1, and to all the other insane games in the franchise. And that Cold Steel 4 is gonna be the climax game that's gonna be like an SC or an Azure or a Cold Steel 2. Like, bruh. Just thinking about that gives me chills. Like, how in the world do you surpass Cold Steel 3? Or even get on the same level? I can't wait for this game, man. I can't wait for this game, bro. But yo, that'll be it for me today, man. My camera's about to run out of battery. So, thank you for listening to me. If you've listened to me for this long, this is something I've been holding in, man, for the last 6 months as I've gone through this journey. And once again, thank God for my friends, man. GC, Shadow, Roggy, Kisei, and Laz, who have supported my spam in that chat that I've been going off in there. And they put up with my hypegasms and with my non-stop questions and live nerds, but they've without them, I think I would have lost my mind ages ago. So shout out to them, man. Shout out to my boys. But trails of greatness. Sorry about that, everyone, man. I was like, dude, my camera's dying. I've got to resort to other means. But yeah, man, in order to close out this catch-up journey video, there was a few more things that I wanted to talk about just really quickly. The first one being Cold Steel 3's music is absolutely out of this world, man. You know, some of these soundtracks, I listen to them, and it's because of the attachment to the memories, and I think it's because of the attachment to the students. You know, they put you in a position where you feel like you're the instructor on Reen's behalf, and a lot of these songs like New Morning, Janile and Balmy, Nothing to Do, and some of these soundtracks, like, so many memories of being a part of this entire journey and this adventure with these classmates and seeing them grow and seeing how your relationship has grown with them, and it's just such a special game. And you know, I've spent the last 6 days pondering about the ending, but I've also been thinking about just how marvelous this entire journey in of itself was. And man, dude, just on that same note, also, and Brave Steel is an awesome battle theme, but on that same note, man, I want to talk real quick because I talked about Estelle quite a bit earlier, and because it's been so long in the video, I don't even know if I got to talk about this with Lloyd and Reen, so I want to talk about it right now. You know, all three characters, with you know, Estelle, Lloyd, and Reen. The reason why they're so special to me is because of the focus on freedom for each individual one, all having to do with freedom of self, which is something that, if that's executed correctly, it can cause for some of my favorite characters ever, because that's my favorite theme in fiction, is freedom. And how Estelle is outwardly free. You know, you see the freedom of self and how that allows others to join her and whatnot. And I want to talk about that with Lloyd and Reen real fast. Let me start off with Reen right quick, because Reen, from the very first game, whenever I found out the reason why he enrolled into Thor's, which was to find himself and figure out what his purpose is and whatnot, you know, he gave himself the opportunity to go out and set off on this new adventure, on this new journey to find his path in life and see what it is that he needs to do. And the more that time went on, and the more either constraints and or circumstances that surrounded him continued to force him to do things that either he did want to do or he didn't want to do. What I love so much about Cold Steel 3 and the way that it handles that journey is that you see a true sense of inner freedom within Reen, and especially whenever he talks to his students, it makes me so happy because it shows me that, even with everything happening right now in the ending, he's still, when he regains composure and he's on his own, and then whatever happens here in Cold Steel 4, I know that he is going to have that inner sense of freedom, that he made the right decision going on that journey, to enroll into the Thor's Academy, and that everything that has happened up until this point in time was just a measure of him growing and continuing to grow as a person, as an individual. There was a couple lines of dialogue within the game, letters from his stepfather or his adopted father, and then Master Yonfai. I'm sorry, and those lines really hit because I have a personal connection to that as well. That journey, that to go out and seek what it is that you truly must do, to find yourself and whatnot. And so I can relate a lot to Reen's journey on there, and how that journey was executed is the reason why I love his character so much. But when it comes to Lloyd, man, as someone who also my entire life has had to live up to somebody else's expectations, living in the shadow of somebody else in the same way that he lives in Guy's shadow, his journey is really inspirational because it shows that, especially with the way that I love whenever he talks to others like Ellie or Tio or Randy, whenever they're having their own troubles with living up to certain expectations. He goes out and gives them words of encouragement, knowing full well that he needs those better than anyone. And I can relate to that a lot, bro. Seeing his struggle with that, and always, feeling like he's not good enough, and he's never enough for that. But at the end of the day, his pursuit in attempting to live up to his brother, and his pursuit in his attempt to get out of his shadow and become his own person, while seeing everyone else around them grow and forcing and wanting them to become their own people, wanting them to come up with their own decisions and have the freedom to make their own decisions and go pursue their own paths in life. He himself also grew to have those very same attributes. And throughout the course of Zero and Azure, and then of course later on with what was happening in Cold Steel 2 and what we've been showing in Cold Steel 3, we see that he has reached that point to where he knows what he needs to do, and now he has the freedom to go out and pursue it. He's created his own legacy, and he no longer lives in the shadow of the person that as much as he loved that person, he is now his own individual, and that was thanks to the journey that he set out on to find himself. And I love that so much, man. And I think that's why I'm so connected to his character and to so many other characters in the story, because a lot of them go through very similar journeys. But yeah, man, this has been the Trails of Awesome Sauce. I want to thank everybody for whoever's still here for this video. I know it's a long one, but I really wanted to talk about this, man. And I needed to get all of this stuff off my chest, bro, because it's such a wonderful story, and I've been holding this in from physically talking about it, because I've talked about it in the group chats and whatnot, but to be able to actually come on here and pour my heart out to you guys, I really needed this, man, which is why there wasn't a lot of cohesion, because this is the first time I was able to actually come on here and just splurge all this out. And so there was a lot of things that I missed out and I didn't talk about. Like, I really want to talk about the Cassius coming in on a dragon at the end of SC, because that was nuts. And I want to talk a little bit more about Mariabelle, because I find her to be such a fascinating character. And some of the other members of Class 7 in Cold Steel. Like, there's a few other things, and I feel like I didn't get to touch as much on Kevin and Rias's relationship as I wanted to, because I really love that too. But I guess we'll save that for another day, man, because this was really just coming off of the high of this series, and it's not over yet, man, because CS4 is next week. But yeah, man, what a journey of legend. I can't wait for next week. It's gonna be awesome sauce. And man, dude, what a journey. And I know that it's not over, bro. I'm going to continue listening to these wonderful soundtracks. I can't stop listening to the soundtracks, bro. This OST from all these games is so magnificent. And especially right now, Cold Steel 3, I can't stop listening to that OST, man. There's so many wonderful pieces. And man, dude, wonderful characters, man. Altina, bro. Altina, GOAT, dude. Like, what a her journey in CS3, bro. Like, see, that's what I'm talking about. Like, seeing their growth, like, as my students, as Reen students, you know, with Juno, with Kurt, with Altina, with Muse, and with Ash, and how they were from the beginning of the game until the end of the game. It's like, whew, man, I can't wait for Cold Steel 4. But anyways, I hope everybody has an awesome day. Take care. Trail's awesome sauce. What a GOAT game franchise, man. You know what? I'll save what I was about to say until after CS4, because then I'll have an actual answer. I'll see y'all next time. Peace out, yo. Greatness.